fucking disappeared. So
Yo, Reggie's got connections, bro. Oh boy.
I don't know what that was about. I mean, I know it was about because like apparently that guy kind of leaked. He didn't even play the game. He just showed like I have an
has it
early copy of
installed. Yeah.
And Reggie said something, and then the next thing I know, I went to go click on the tweet again, and that was like an hour later. His account was gone. So either he deleted it or Twitter deleted it. So
yeah, maybe he deleted it and played into the joke, or he was legitimately scared. I don't know.
I think he was legitimately scared because I know you heard of what Nintendo did to the hacker.
Yes.
He's going to be paying him 25% of his check for the rest of his life because he actually
that's insane. That by the way that happened, like that's a fucking thing, dude. How is that even? Like, I don't understand. Like, make the man pay a lump sum, that he has to like pay off. I don't understand the idea of permanently taking 25% of somebody's salary going forward. Like that. How do you even enforce that? Like, what if your income isn't through normal means? I don't know. That one feels weird, but
I think that was to make an example out of him. I don't think that if this was like a massive thing, I don't think they would have gone after him as hard as they did. But I really think they wanted to make an example out of him, because they are really strict on modding their games and all that shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, and people have been posting like, there's a way to buy the game. You buy Nintendo's game, and then you put it on an emulator on your computer after you buy it. So it's like a little like device or something like that. I don't know how it works, but yeah, you buy the game and then you put the cartridge into the device, and then the computer will emulate the Switch, and then you can have better specs on your computer because obviously your computer is better than the Switch, and it runs like way better. Game runs way better. So people have been doing that, but I think Nintendo is starting to flag people for doing that shit or even giving instructions on how to do that shit. So they've been cracking down like super hard lately. I don't know what the fuck is going on. I thought it was because Tears of the Kingdom, but they've actually been doing this for like the last couple of months.
They're feeling emboldened, man. That legal department over there, they're just always looking for somebody to fucking put on the cross,
Yeah, it's pretty scary. Their legal department, like, they must have like the best minds as far as that, like the most strictest minds out there. So
yeah. Well,
I remember at one point you couldn't even do like it was a joke, but it was serious as well. You couldn't even do porn of Nintendo, like parody porn or anything, because they own the parody rights to all their characters.
Which is
it's crazy.
Would be ironic given the nature of Fire Emblem Heroes. So, because that is pretty much a porn game at this point. So yeah, it's always been a porn game. But can you believe, by the way, that game? I believe that game's been out for 6 years.
Which one?
Fire Emblem Heroes, the mobile gacha game.
Is that how long we known each other? Because I know we were in the other area.
Dude. Yes, I think so. I think it's been that long. Hold on, let me confirm that. Fire Emblem Heroes release date. Yeah, February 2nd, 2017.
That's crazy.
Is that we met in 2018, didn't we? Isn't that when you started?
Yeah, it was when I started. So
okay.
It was a year after that.
Okay. So yeah, so I was a degenerate for a long while by that point. I think meeting you maybe saved me. And then Genshin Impact came out and I got ruined. Okay, well, hi everybody. Welcome to the show. This is the Player's Take. This is episode 219. I'm your host, Justin DeSimone, joined by my co-host, as always, Montrell Rice. Montrell, outside of gaming stuff, how's life treating you so far this week?
I can't really complain too much. Yeah, I can't really complain. I gotta do yard work tomorrow, or not tomorrow, but Saturday.
Yeah, we've been doing that for a couple weeks now, last couple weekends, and goddamn, bro, like, it is so much work to take care of your yard, especially when it's not in good shape.
Yeah, I guess I'm lucky because like, Deanna actually likes when the yard is like crazy. She was like, because she's more like an environmental type, so she was like, oh, it's better for the environment when the yard's like
Yeah.
super crazy. But we made a compromise. I said the backyard can be crazy. I don't want the front yard to be crazy. So
Yeah. You don't
this
want to be
this
those
week,
neighbors.
yeah. So this week I'm gonna cut the front yard, and I'm gonna trim the sides because like my privacy fence in the back doesn't cover all of my yard. If that makes any sense. So I'm gonna cut the parts that the privacy fence doesn't cover up, in the backyard. But I told her like I'm giving it like 2 or 3 more weeks, and then I'm cutting it because she like loves it back there. But
Well, you need to be careful with that because you're gonna get like snakes and stuff.
yeah,
If you let it go too crazy, like you're gonna
yeah,
get animals like living in there.
yeah, and that's
Because
what I
we
told her.
actually we have that problem in our green belt right now. We're like the back of our house is right on a green belt, and
Hmm.
they have they mowed half of it like 3 weeks ago, and then they came out this week and mowed the same half they mowed 3 weeks ago. But the half on our side, it hasn't been mowed in like months, and it is fucking crazy high at this point, like the weeds and shit.
Hmm.
And people are in my neighborhood are getting snakes in their yard because of it. So
Yeah, so I told her the same thing, and she was like, "I love it." I'm like, "No, you won't love it when the freaking snake jumps out at you." So I'm probably
yeah.
gonna cut it next week or whatever because I can't do both in the same weekend. That's gonna be crazy. But I can definitely do one and then the other. So
How big is your yard?
um, about this, I haven't seen your
Similar to
backyard.
mine.
Yeah, it's more than yours. My backyard's pretty big.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty big. I don't know the footage or the square footage, but it's pretty big.
Okay.
So, um,
Yeah, mowing, edging, fucking trimming the hedges, pulling
yeah.
weeds, dude. It's so. Oh my god. We're trying to
Yeah,
do it in.
luckily we don't
We're
live
trying to
in
do
the
it in
HOA.
bursts, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we don't have to worry about pulling the weeds. I just cut it and then I go. But yeah, I feel bad for y'all because I'm pretty sure they're really strict on that type of thing where you live
I
at.
mean, they're not. We've actually not given a shit for 5 years. We just started to care recently.
Hmm.
Um, our neighbors are, they've been making those little poking comments, last year or so about the weeds and everything. And it used to be so good when the other people lived here, shit like that.
They say that
Um,
shit to you?
oh
That's
yeah, yeah,
oh
oh
god, I
yeah,
hate
yeah.
that.
No, seriously, because they knew the people that lived here prior, and they were like, oh yeah, when Tim was here, yeah, the yard looked amazing, that kind of thing. Um,
That's so
yeah,
passive
no,
aggressive. I
I
fucking
fucking
hate that
hate,
shit.
dude, it is so, I fucking hate people, bro. Like seriously, mind your own fucking business. But anyways, we've been working at it slowly over the last
Hmm.
like month or two, and we have made some progress. Like it definitely looks better.
Okay.
There are still weeds in certain parts of the yard, and even places we've triaged still have weeds, but they have a lot less than they did.
Hmm.
So we're it's just dude, it's a lot of work. It honestly, you'd be surprised how much it hurts when like the next day. I would do a couple weeks ago. I like my hand was so sore from pulling weeds. Like that's because we were doing it for hours, like 2 or 3 hours.
Hmm.
And I mean you're not just pulling them out and they come out. Like you gotta like grip and yank.
Yeah.
So yeah, my left hand was hurting for like 2 or 3 days afterwards. It was funny, but yeah, yard work. My dad is wherever he is laughing his fucking ass off because I hated yard work when I was a kid, and he never made me do it because he knew I wasn't into it, and same with my brother. But he would be laughing his ass off if he were still alive, like being like, man, this is so funny, dude. Like you're going to fucking Home Depot buying dirt and shit and like tools and all this plant food and shit. Like, man, dude. So yeah, never thought I would be doing this stuff, but here we are,
Actually, same. But here we are.
taking care of a home. It's a whole thing. But all right. Well, let's get into the rigmarole real quick, and then we'll dive into the show. So for those of you who haven't listened before, this is our weekly show where we talk about video games, video game news, and other topics pertaining to video games. We post at 6 a.m. Central Time on Fridays on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and your favorite podcast app of choice. And if you'd like to send us questions, you can do so on Twitter at The Players Take, or you can send us an email to theplayerstake01@gmail.com. All right, Montrell. So we have a little topic this week that you had brought up.
Yeah.
Redfall came out, and it has been getting absolutely lambasted in the media, but that's not what we're talking about yet. We'll talk about that later in the show. However, there was somebody, you saw some tweets of people trying to do that thing that games media likes to do when a game does poorly, where they're
Yeah.
like,
With a company
basically
they like. With a company they like,
with
by
a
the
company
way.
they like, where they're basically like, hey guys, let's lay off the devs here. They worked so hard. They did so much work, to make this game. They poured their blood, sweat, and tears into it. Like, let's not criticize them, that kind of
Yeah.
thing, like playing softball with people. So I'll let you go first since this is your topic. So go ahead. What are your thoughts?
It's just a small icebreaker, I guess, to pop this episode off. But yeah, like my only criticism or my only problem is I don't have an issue with you know, developers or anything like that. Like I said, two of my best friends are game developers. Um, one of my best friends actually worked on Jedi Survivor, and I was still on the timeline. If you follow me, I was saying I love the game; it's great. But I was still tearing a new one for the frame rate issues it was having, which have been patched for the console version at least, has been patched up. But upon release, it was terrible, and I was still
Yeah.
criticizing the game for that. Which I think they should be rightfully so. And people were still defending, like, oh man, Respawn, they work so fucking hard on this game, guys. And you don't know game design and everything like that. And it's just like, okay. And then same thing with Redfall, where people are like, "Oh, the developers worked so fucking hard on this game," and it's like no one is saying they did not work hard on these games. I don't even believe, with the exception of a few games, like very few, I don't believe any bad game that comes out, the developers are just like sitting on their ass eating fucking Wendy's
Cheetos.
and like, all right, yeah, Cheetos and shit. Like, oh, all right, we're gonna press one button, and that's like very few games where that was like the actual development, right? Um, even something as crazy as like Cyberpunk, and we criticize the fuck out of that game. I don't think the developers were sitting on their ass and being like, oh well,
No,
we're just gonna definitely not. But that being said, I think video games in particular, this is only exclusively video games. That's the only media rather to get criticized the way it gets criticized, and people jump down the defense for the developers or the company or whatever the fuck. I don't see this for movies especially. Let DC make a bad fucking superhero movie. Oh my god, it's WB is the worst company ever. Blah 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 blah. TV shows, Disney. If there's a
they'll
bad
attack
Disney,
people's character for playing a certain part poorly or something like that. Like
exactly,
dude,
like God. Star Wars. Remember Star Wars? They attacked fucking what's her face for being the Jedi? I forgot her name.
Already. Oh yeah, the woman who played Rey, or famously the guy who played Joffrey Baratheon in fucking Game of Thrones was like harassed, for playing that character. It's like
exactly.
So yeah.
So like, but no one comes to their defense, right? Like, and even in books, right? Like George R.R. Martin still hasn't wrote a fucking book. I mean, we criticize him, yeah, but like, it's like even when there are bad books or whatever, the only reason the authors get criticized is probably because of their social antics, like J.K. Rowling, for instance. But no one's ever came out and be like, like in defense of the bad book. I'm pretty sure there was like a bad Harry Potter book here or there or whatever, but no one's ever like just did that or whatever. But only for like fucking video games where people will actually defend the developers, and then we have to consider all the factors of the developers. And it's like, just because criticism does not mean attack. And I think people misconstrue that, because I understand, like, if you have been working on an indie game all your life or whatever, and it comes out and it's still bad, you put your life, your blood, sweat, and tears in it, and you're like, you're attacking me because I put my life work into this. But it's like, I'm sorry, bro, the game is bad. And it's like, because even if I'm doing work or whatever, I use my last. Oh my god!
Deli, what's that, Silas?
Oh, that was Deli.
Okay.
I feel about like if I did a bad job at work or whatever, and I can use like one of my previous jobs as an example. Like I was working at the government job, and they're like, "Yo, my boss told me like, I know you're trying hard, but you gotta do better. Like you have to do better." And he criticized the fuck out of my work, and it made me do better. But it wasn't like, oh, fuck him and blah 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 blah. Like it was like I was legitimately doing bad work or whatever. So I had to learn how to do better, and I did. But I can't be like, oh man, well, there are factors to consider in certain things like that. Like, maybe this and that and the third. You can tell your boss that, like, yeah, I'm dealing with like a bad divorce or whatever the fuck, right? They may put that in consideration for your review, but overall, if you can't separate your life from your work, then they have to separate themselves from you, if that
Yeah.
makes any sense. And
Yeah.
I feel like video games are excluded from that. It's every facet. Because if they do come out with a bad game like Redfall or whatever, well, I don't know if Redfall is bad. I haven't played it, but from what I've been seeing, it's a pretty bad game. Then we should just give the developers a chance. And it's like, what chance is there? Like, when are we gonna? I don't know. I'll let you take over. But
Well,
like,
hold. Okay, we're gonna talk about this with Xbox, right? And
yeah,
Redfall, like we're gonna get this mixed in with Redfall a little bit here, but like holding them accountable, because again, I've said this ad nauseum on this fucking show, guys. Like, why are we defending corporations that are selling us a product? If you are asking me for $70 for a video game, that game should have a certain quality to it, and that's true for $60, $50, all the way down to $1. you know
hmm
I don't like a $1 game that comes out, it's $1. I'm not expecting much from that. you know it could be total dog shit, and it's like, yeah, it was a fucking dollar, who cares? But $70, we're not like, that is not, sorry, there's a bar there of quality that you probably need to hit for people to be okay with that. You're
yeah,
asking for something, like, if you buy a fucking, like, a spoon that fucking doesn't isn't a spoon, you're gonna be upset about that. Like, it's like, fucking, like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, yes, you can criticize the company that makes a spoon that's not actually a fucking spoon, or or you bought one and it was fucking not what was advertised. Like, there's we can criticize companies for that. There is something, there's being respectful in your criticism. That is a
yes,
legitimate
yes,
place we can talk about, okay? Like, because
yeah.
on
I'm
this
not
show
talking about
before, we
wishing
have
death.
certainly gone probably a little overboard in the way we've criticized games before, where we're cursing up a fucking storm. We're talking about like fuck EA, or fuck, Square Enix, or whatever the fuck. I mean, go listen to the Kingdom Hearts 3 episode. There was probably some lines crossed in that episode, But um so that's where I think the conversation should be more, is not absolving them of criticism, but the way we criticize, right? Like, I'm going to go to
Yeah,
Skill Up for example, right? He's a very respected reviewer in the industry at this point. But his tweet of his review of Redfall, I'm going to read this word for word, quote, "Redfall is a creatively vapid, amateurishly designed, and woefully unfinished. It is embarrassingly bad. It is so bad that it makes it difficult to have any faith in Xbox's ability to pick winners, lead studios, or guarantee a quality final product." End quote. Like, that is fucking scathing, That is a scathing statement for a game. And I don't see anybody going at Skill Up being like, "Oh, bro, hey, bro, why are you criticizing fucking, Arcane?" Blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't see any of that shit. It's when randos do it that it's like not okay. And I think Skill Up's like right on the line there of where I would go if I was trying to be respectful. Because, I mean,
yeah,
saying something's amateurishly designed, you are really like calling them out. I mean, saying it's embarrassingly bad, that is a professional studio that made the game.
yeah. and
Um,
And like for instance, just for like Redfall, for instance, like and we'll talk about it later, but like I respect. I don't like arcane games, but I respect what they did. Only game I like was BioShock 2 from them,
mhm.
but just because I don't like their games personally doesn't mean that their games are bad. Every game that they have made so far up until Redfall has been critically successful and has been financially successful. I don't think
Yeah.
Deathloop did as good, but it was a critically it was a hit. So they obviously know how to make games. So in my opinion, when Skill Up says something like that, right? He says it was amateurly made. Someone can take it like, oh, are you calling them amateurs and stuff like that? In my opinion, he was saying this studio that made this game is so good. I can't believe that this game looked
This
like
is
it was
far
made by.
below their bar.
Yes,
Yeah.
this is far
Yeah.
below your quality of work. If you're a superstar on a football team, say like Tom Brady or something like that, he's just throwing interceptions at the inner fucking exceptions, and you're like, bro,
Yeah.
are Tom Brady, you are a great player, but what I seen tonight looks something like a high school player. I think he would take that criticism like, you know what? You're absolutely fucking right. Like, I need to, do
Yeah.
better or whatever. If
Yeah.
depending on his ego or whatever. I don't know the dude personally. But I'm just saying, like, that's how I would take the criticism. If someone was the star of a team or something like that, or the star of a or the best worker or something like that, and they're like, Justin, you're one of our most brightest fucking employees here.
Oh,
I
thank you,
can't
Montrell.
believe yeah, I can't believe that this quality of work came from you,
Yeah.
So
Right. No, if somebody said that to me at my job, right? Like I mean, shit. Like that's a wake up call moment, Like
yeah,
like I would hope that you would take that seriously,
yeah.
as
Now I'm
as
not
a professional.
exactly. Now I'm not excusing people who are like, saying like, oh, they're wishing death on Arcane and all this other shit like that. Like, I'm not talking about death threats. I'm not talking about trolls. Everybody has that, and everybody. I'm talking about legit criticism that I've seen people giving this game, and rightfully so. And yeah, they're throwing a couple of jokes in there here and there, not disrespectful jokes, but like just jokes about lag and everything like that, and the bugs or whatever. But like people are like, oh, and it's like I don't know if it's like I hate using the term snowflake or whatever the fuck. I don't know if it's a sensitivity thing that we're still going through. I thought we moved past that, but apparently it's still here, and it's still with the gaming industry in particular that
Yeah.
you can't criticize them. Like for instance, right? This is a good example. It was I'll leave this and I'll let it go after this. But League of Legends. There was a guy long ago who was on the team and his name was I Will Dominate or whatever. I used to watch him because he's a phenomenal jungler or whatever, and I used to watch him back in the day to learn how to jungle better. And he was actually in LCS. And the reason, do you want to? He still doesn't know the real reason he got kicked off, but the reason a lot of people were telling him on the side was he criticized a skin that came out.
Wow.
And he said like, "Yo, that skin looks like fucking shit." That's what he said. He didn't know who personally made the skin or anything. And one of the people or the team that made the skin heard him say that and kicked him off the team because they say he was being toxic. It kicked him out of LCS. He was banned from
Wow.
LCS.
Yeah,
And that's what I'm
that's
talking about. That's crazy to me. That's insane.
yeah, no, and I think, dude, to the point earlier, right, about us on this show, I have definitely said a game is shitty or a game runs like shit or plays like shit or has really bad elements. Like I'll think of like Borderlands 3, for instance. I
Mhm.
fucking hated that game, I don't remember what I said exactly, but I don't think it was very positive.
No, you didn't like that game at all.
No, and so I think people need to separate things, right? Like if on this show, I feel comfortable speaking pretty plainly about how I feel about things, and Montrell's the same way. If we were talking with the developers, we would probably wouldn't say it that way to them in their face. But even though we're saying it that way here, it doesn't mean we mean disrespect to the studio. I don't fucking hate Gearbox. I don't think Gearbox sucks as a studio or anything or a company like that, anything like that. But this is the thing. I'm very passionate about games. Montreal's very passionate about games. Most of us that play games, like to the degree we do, are very passionate about the medium. And when a game is asking you for $70 and then hours and hours of time, by the way, that's another element to this. Like when you play Redfall for 30 hours and it is a fucking 3, like on the scale of 1 to 10, yeah, I'm gonna be fucking fed up by the time I'm done with that game,
Yeah.
And if I'm reviewing it and I'm like forcing myself to finish it, yeah, probably not gonna have a very great things to say about a game that's that bad.
Yeah.
So I think we just need to, like, people need to take a step back, man. Is like criticism is not a personal attack. Even if you're using strong language, curse words, strongly worded words, saying things are amateurish, embarrassingly bad, like Skill Up did here. I don't think Skill Up's taking a shot at Arcane, like in a personal level. He's not fucking saying that. And I don't think most people are saying that he's saying that. So that's my point here is like, why are we so like just, I don't know. I don't want to say the word snowflake, but we're soft. I feel like there's a lot of people in the game industry that are really soft. They can't handle criticism. They don't like the idea of working on a game for 5 years and it's not up to snuff and people calling them out on that. They don't like that.
Yeah.
And I get that. I understand that doesn't feel great, but you want real criticism. You don't want to go to your job and work and then be told that you're doing a great job when you're not really doing a great job. Like that's
Exactly.
bad. That is a bad environment. That's toxic in the opposite direction, in my opinion.
Exactly.
Like if you're not doing your job up to stuff, you need to be told that so you can fix the behavior and rectify your performance. Otherwise you're never going to grow as a person. So I think studios should feel the same way in general. And we're going to talk about Phil Spencer later. I think he has the same viewpoint because he was extremely critical of himself and Xbox in an interview he did this week related to Redfall and a lot of the stuff going on with Xbox. Like he isn't necessarily walking away from this whole thing going, oh, everybody's so mean, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, we didn't hit a bar that we are trying to hit, that people expect us to hit, and we have to internally look at the way we do things to fix that. And I feel like that's the approach people should take. Don't be so defensive and be like, oh God, oh, you're attacking me because you said the game that I made is bad. It's like, no, dude, like if that's the way you're going to take it, you're going to continue to make bad games because you don't think anything you're doing is the problem, and I guess we can't help you, but we're kind of getting a little off topic. This is more about people who like come to the defense of companies rather than the companies themselves. So, but to those people, it's kind of the same concept. Stop coddling corporations that are billion-dollar enterprises, okay? Nobody needs to coddle Arcane. They're fucking owned by Microsoft, okay? Like let's calm the fuck down with trying to coddle a studio like that, an indie team that's like 4 people and they poured their heart and fucking soul into a game for 4 years. I can understand maybe getting a little defensive there and like coming to their defense, but I'm not gonna defend Sony like that. I'm not gonna fucking defend Naughty Dog like that. Like, get the fuck out of here, dude. Like, no, you have all these resources and you can't make a game that's better than a 4. What are you talking about? Like that's
exactly.
There's no world where that should be reality and should be acceptable to anybody. So yeah, that's it. Those are my thoughts.
All right. Well, let's move on to. I mean, I agree. I mean, but we do need to move on. So let's get on to the games we're playing. Right. And Justin, you can go
enough
first.
On that. We'll probably dabble more in that discussion later too when we talk about Microsoft again. So yeah, let's move into the games we're playing. Do you want to go first this week?
No, you can go first.
Okay, yeah, I'll take it. So yeah, I've actually only been playing 2 games: League a little bit, and then Honkai Star Rail. So League, I'm not going to talk about much beyond the fact that we have a major patch coming in 2 weeks. Yes. That is like seriously disrupting the current meta. They are like redoing tons of items and reintroducing some items and changing some items, like taking mythic status away from them.
Yeah.
And then giving other items mythic status. Everything you showed in the chat earlier this week, I am very positive about. I'm actually super excited to jump into this patch in a couple weeks. I'm kind of bummed it's like not out right now because I really want to play with those changes because I think it's going to seriously shake up the meta in a really good way. There's a lot more interesting options, it feels like, or there will be a lot more interesting options, whereas today I feel like most ADC builds are 100% crit. That's it. 100% crit, Infinity Edge, baby. That's your build, bro.
Yeah, and everything kind of revolves around Bork, like for the tanks. Like it seems like that's your only option. But now with these new changes, the hybrid AP builds are really good for one hit stuff, and that would be another option to take away from these tanks, because we've been complaining about the tanks the last 4 months. It's insane how powerful these tanks are. And me transitioning to support role as well, some of my support items are getting buffed, which I love because I can support people more and move around the map more and just be a better utility. I just sometimes I feel like by like 20 minutes, 25 minutes into the game, I'm useless. But with these utility items that are coming out or being retuned and everything like that, I can
Yep.
do a lot more damage. Or not more damage, be a better utility to the team, and
Yep.
especially tank supports because like enchanters are like killing the meta right now.
Yep.
Enchanters and pokers, but like tanks, I think a tank like Leona, Alistair, and everything. Those are the ones I really like to play. I think those are going to start making a comeback as well. But yeah, ADCs are definitely they were definitely underfunded and underpowered. It was it was really bad. If you weren't picking Vars, um, it was really bad. And Vars is getting even more of a buff because of
Whoa.
these item changes.
Dude,
Uh
yeah, I'm
Kog'Maw,
fucking so excited to play Varus after this patch because, dude, I feel like an AP AD hybrid build is going to be very, very like legitimately possible with him
yeah,
now, because there's a lot of items that are going to scale off AP suddenly, um, and AD like both at the same time potentially,
yep,
like in certain items. And that is going to make a hybrid build like maybe a thing possibly, which it's really not today.
yeah.
And I'm actually really excited to play with that. So
And what's funny is it used to be a thing before the major item changes, the mythics and all that.
mhm.
Varus, Kog'Maw, and Kaisa, for instance, used to build hybrid. Like that was their
Okay,
thing, and then they did item changes, and they
yeah,
were stuck to one, committing to one or the other. But
yeah,
that's why we see Kog'Maw right now coming back into the meta because he is super fucking strong right now, and
yeah,
I think he's a sleeper pick. And I think after
yeah.
these changes, he's going to be fucking permaban
Busted,
for me.
busted.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, because I've been dabbling in AP Varus, and I think some of the changes because Rage Blade, I think the on hit for Rage Blade is now magic on hit,
yep. Hmm.
rather than attack on hit or AD on hit. And then Kraken Slayer, I believe, is magic on hit now, instead of pure on hit because
Yeah, instead of
they
true
took
damage.
instead of
Yeah.
true damage. Yeah, they took the mythic away, so they lowered that to just magic on hit, which is that's going to be very interesting now as well. So I think there's going to be some new item combinations that just haven't existed at this point up to now, and I'm very very excited to see that. There was the one you put in the chat too, Static Shiv, is that right?
Yeah,
They're
that's the
bringing
old
that
item coming back.
they're
Yeah.
bringing that back, and that item looks sick.
It was sick.
Yeah, and that one also has a magic damage passive. I don't know if it scales off magic damage, but so there's gonna be some interesting build options, and I'm
Yep.
very excited to play around with them when it comes out. So definitely looking forward to that. And then yeah, Honkai Star Rail. So I've been playing this pretty much all week. When I'm not playing with you guys. And I'm pretty deep now. I'd say I'm on the back half of current content. I would probably wager. There's three. I think there's only three major locations in the game right now. This is following a very similar path to Genshin's release model, where Genshin came out with one full zone and then a second zone that was about 2/3 complete, I think. And I'm getting the feeling that that's about where we're going to be with Honkai, because this game has three zones so far. One is like a really small intro area that's pretty short. You're only there for a few hours. And then the first planet is humongous, actually. It's a major area. And then the second planet or second place you go to, I just started that today. And I think it's not finished. I'm not sure if it's totally completed right now or not. So the story for that. So I'll find out when I get there. But so yeah, this game. I think I was a little tepid on it last week because I only played one night. Having played it for a week now, I'm pretty into it. I think the game is fun. It's pretty well designed. I'd say it's got a pretty tight gameplay loop, and I appreciate what it is, and I'm looking forward to getting the more team building side of the game in the end game portion of it. The comparisons to Genshin I was making last week are still in effect. There are still true for the most part, but there are definitely a lot of slight differences with Honkai that they've made in terms of the game's structure that I think are improvements over what Genshin has today, and I appreciate some of the things they've done. There's some additional depth in terms of character building that they added because in Genshin you have artifacts, which there are 5 slots for artifacts in Genshin, and artifact sets are 2 and 4 piece sets. Honkai also has artifact sets, but they are only 4 slots for those, and you have 2 and 4 piece sets. And what they did was they added 2 more slots that are not tied to those main 4 artifacts. Those 2 additional slots are their own items that you can
Mhm.
farm, and they also come in sets of two pieces. So you have 4-piece sets and 2-piece sets, and you can wear both at the same time. And I like this change. I think it's certainly giving a little bit more flexibility in character building compared to Genshin. Genshin's a little bit more rigid. You really only wear either 2-piece sets or a 4-piece set. Like that's basically what you do in Genshin. So I like that minor change. The traces system is kind of like a little mini skill tree. I don't think it's that deep though. I think you can unlock everything in it over time if you invest enough into the character. So it's not like a super deep skill tree in that regard, but that is there. And then the actual leveling of your character and your weapons pretty much the same as Genshin. You're just pumping experience books into them and then ascending them when they hit their like mid-level caps between tiers. Essentially, that's the same for weapons as well. Um, but yeah, it's a lot of little small things. So in Genshin, they when the game launched, you leveled artifacts by consuming other artifacts, and that was the only way to level them. And then eventually they introduced these items that had they gave artifact experience, like they were just a artifact version of experience books. But in Genshin, those are really rare. There's no way to farm them currently today, as far as I know, and they're given out really sparingly. Honkai launched with that kind of item in the game, and you can actually farm them using the resin equivalent in this game, the Trailblaze power. And I love that change. I think that's a really nice change because leveling artifacts in Genshin Impact is one of the fucking worst activities in the game. It's fucking horrible. I hate it. It's just resource consuming, time consuming, and when you run out of artifacts, like dude, you are waiting fucking weeks to get enough to like build up another artifact set. It's just that intensive in terms of how much investment you need to do. Honkai seems a little bit more on the lean side in that regard, because I think max level for artifacts in this game is only 16 versus 20. And I so far it seems like the leveling cost is not that crazy. And the required experience for relics isn't that crazy. So I like those small changes. They seem to have with this game, they aired on the side of making things a little bit more player friendly in almost every way. I was mentioning this last week because the rewards are ticked a little bit higher. I feel like the resin usage is like giving you a little bit more than what you would get equivalently in Genshin. And I also feel like the requirements to kind of level your characters and progress is a little bit faster than it is in Genshin too. At least that's kind of my feeling on it so far. And I appreciate those changes because Genshin at this point is like a hyper grind game. It's always been that way, but it's just super grindy to do anything to completion in Genshin Impact in terms of like developing your characters. Like maxing a character out in Genshin Impact is going to take you fucking weeks of farming in order to get the materials for, like
Mhm.
just one character, I don't get the feeling that Honkai is necessarily going to be in that same realm. It might be like hyper late game, but it seems so far that the game is a little bit more generous with the amount of stuff it gives you. So at least from the word jump, I think Genshin, they learned from Genshin is basically what I'm saying, and I think that is appreciated as somebody who's played both games, because Genshin's. I think the thing with Genshin at this point, because I stopped playing it about a month ago. I haven't played it in like a month, and I am not particularly super keen to go back to it right now. because the game is just bloated now. I feel like at this point, there's too many characters, there's too much content, and the grind is still there. Like the hyper grind is still fucking there.
Okay.
So you feel like it feels like everything in Genshin takes fucking forever. You know, like getting through the story is going to take you hundreds of hours. Once you do that, you start leveling your characters and you're doing all the side content for, you know, Spiral Abyss and all the artifact farming and talent book farming and all that shit. And dude, that is gonna take you. It's endless. Like it's never gonna end. You know, like you're gonna be constantly on that treadmill trying to catch up.
Hmm.
In terms of where your characters are built well enough to do the content you have access to. So that's kind of the point I'm at with Genshin. I have too many characters and it's taking too long to level them, you know? Like it takes me just like I don't have enough shit to level them all and starting from scratch in Genshin feels really bad. It takes a month to really get to a point where you have enough stuff that you can make significant progress on a character or two. And it's just gotten to the point where it's a little bit of a slog, I feel like, and they've never turned that dial down, you know. And these are things they could change. Like I don't feel like they're so set in stone that they can't do anything about it, but they've chosen not to. And now that they've implemented some of these things into Honkai, it's going to be even harder to go back to Genshin because Honkai has just a lot of quality of life features that I wish Genshin would adopt. And it's a little frustrating that it hasn't happened after what 2.5 years now
Hmm.
with Genshin. So like this isn't to say that Genshin's a bad game, but I think it's a really really tall barrier to entry for new players at this point. To me, with Genshin, like, dude, if you're not committed to putting in hundreds of hours in a Genshin, you're not gonna catch up. Like, that's how much content there is to do in that fucking game now. And we are a few months away from 4.0 coming out, and they're about to add a fifth region to the game. And this issue is going to get even worse, you know. So it's a weird situation with that game. But back to Honkai. Um, so I kind of go over the components, I guess, of the game. So story wise, the game is, I'd say it's pretty much on par with Genshin in terms of story. I think at this point, like I've always sung the praises of Genshin's story, but I will say I've cooled on it a little bit more recently. They take a lot of time in that game to flesh characters out, but they do it in very like it's a lot of like what I would consider like anime filler episodes. And there's just a lot of time spent on that kind of activity in Genshin Impact. And I think certain types of players would feel like it's a waste of your time. And I'm kind of getting there with that game where it's just there's so much dialogue about nothing happening sometimes. And it just goes and goes and goes. And I get to a point where I'm just trying to skip it. And bro, I'm literally hitting the button like fucking 15 times. And I'm like, this conversation about this fucking thing is still going somehow. Like, how are they writing dialogue about this for this long? You know, it's not something that should have that much dialogue about it. And they have a tendency to do that. Honkai has a little bit of that too. It's not as bad, but it is still there. They have a certain style with these games. And there's just these you know, I appreciate the slow moments in things like stories and movies and books and games. But there's a little bit too much of that in Hoyo versus games. Like they don't get to the point fast enough. And Honkai definitely has some of that too, but it's better than Genshin so far, at least in that regard. I'd say the overarching plot is interesting, but I'm not like super invested. I think there's interesting lore here certainly, but it's nothing that's going to blow your hair back. I don't think this is on par with like some of the best stories in video games. Definitely not. So but it's interesting sci-fi certainly. I think if you're into like, you know, Fantasy Star kind of thing, I think there's definitely some interesting stuff here. Or like Star Ocean, I guess. There's some interesting concepts in this game certainly. Um
Okay.
in terms of combat, yeah, the combat is pretty much you're gonna learn it quickly, and it's the same the whole time. Like your characters, you get two abilities. Every character, well, three abilities. Every character has a basic attack, which is the same for everyone so far, for the most part. that just it's just a swing, like you're just hitting something. Then everybody has a skill that does a specific thing, and every character's skill is different, of course. And that's going to depend on the character. And then everybody has an ultimate, and that ultimate is, of course, different for every character as well. Now you can't use your ultimate until you recharge enough energy to use it. So it's not always available to you. So most turns are going to be spent between deciding whether to use your character's skill or just do a basic attack. That is pretty much the game. So I have a feeling this will get stale for certain people sooner or later. And I may be one of those people. I don't quite know yet. I haven't gotten through enough of the content to get to the point where I'm just logging in and doing dailies and stuff like that.
Mm.
So it's pretty simplistic in that regard. The depth comes from timing of when to use your ultimate and certain abilities, and then the synergies within your party that you're building. Because you have a 4-character party, all these characters have different elements that uh, that's the damage type they deal, and those elements will interact with certain enemies. Enemies are weak to certain elements, of course, and they have a break bar that will you hit them with the elements they're weak to. Eventually, you will break them, and their turn will get pushed back in the turn order. They will take extra damage for that break, and then there are other effects depending on the element. Like for ice, for instance, like they get frozen if they get broken by ice. Other ones might just deal dot damage or have some other special effect. But so the game's pretty simple to learn, like straightforward in that regard. The complexity comes from the team building. And right now there aren't that many characters, but this is going to flesh out obviously as the game's life continues. But it is I think it's interesting enough to play that I think there's enough depth here to entertain most people. I think if you're like a really hardcore RPG player that is looking for something super duper deep, like I'm talking like hyper granular in terms of statistics and stuff, I don't know if this is going to be the game for you, because your characters aren't ever going to gain more abilities. That's like kind of the weird thing with the way these games play. Because Genshin's like this too. Your characters are what they are when you pull them. They don't
Mm.
ever get new abilities. You just enhance what they have, basically. So that's always been the caveat with both Genshin and this game. If you don't like that concept, you're not going to really like this game very much. Because the growth does not come from getting access to new things. The growth is literally all numbers based. Like your characters are just getting more powerful, like their numbers are getting higher. That's the progression in these games. And that is I'm the kind of player that I like the complexity of kind of getting access to new mechanics and stuff like that in my RPGs. But for some reason, I don't know why, the way they develop these games really appeals to me though. It's like I just consider it really casual, and this is my way to interact with like a casual game. That's really grindy. I don't know. It's just I find their games, they hit that right sweet spot for me where it's deep enough that I'm intrigued, and then the character building and the team building is really where the game shines. These games shine, I feel like. Um, and then going into combat and testing out what you've done, that's where the kind of reward comes from in this whole progression system. So I think it's very similar to Genshin though, for the most part, in terms of progression. So I've explained the minor differences, but it's largely, the structure is largely the same. In terms of other things, we haven't had an event yet. But there is actually a lot of activities in this game that Genshin doesn't have. The one thing about this game that I'm actually really excited about comparatively to Genshin is this game seems a little less casual than Genshin. Like Genshin is like fucking hyper casual. Like there is nothing in that game that's actually really difficult. There's one thing, it's called the Spiral Abyss, that and I'm gonna be frank, like floors 1 through 11 aren't hard. The only thing in Genshin Impact that's actually hard is floor 12 of Spiral Abyss. And the only reason it's hard is because it requires generally very specific team compositions leveled to their absolute highest max imaginable. And it's just a damage check, generally speaking. So that's why
Okay.
it's hard. It's not hard mechanically. Like it plays the same as any other portion of the game. but it's literally just a stat check in Genshin. So, but there is no other content like that in the game that's like super challenging. Most of the stuff you do in Genshin is really easy when you get to a certain level of power in the game. There's kind of a break point you hit where you're just kind of you kill shit super fast. You're just like, and that becomes the whole game. Because the events they do in Genshin are not combat events generally. They're usually like weird little mini games, like gameplay mini games. Like they had a kind of a Guitar Hero weird mini game like a month or two ago. They had a Pac-Man mini game. It's just they do shit like that. That's what Genshin has become. And I've gotten less. There's less appeal to the game for me for that because I'm the kind of player that wants to like test out my party comps and shit and like really go hardcore on being challenged within the game's combat. And Genshin doesn't do that as much. I think this game has a little bit more of that. There's a lot more side content outside of the main story and the main grinding apparatus that is like literally like challenge content. You do get rewards for this content, of course, but um, there's something called Simulated Universe, which is literally kind of like a randomized endless dungeon. And I like that feature because Genshin does not have anything like that. Spiral Abyss is specifically designed like it's got the same layout every time you do it for a period of time. And then they change it every like 4 weeks or 6 weeks or something like that. Or no, it's twice a month. Actually, they change it. But yeah, so simulated universe in this game is like a little bit more randomized. You go into rooms and they'll either have combat encounters, they might have an event, or you can buy stuff from a shop to enhance your characters during your run. And that I think it's kind of a refreshing take on it. It'll be a little bit more fun to repeat that content even when you don't get rewards anymore with the way it works, because you can get these like buffs and stuff that buff your party, and they get pretty fucking gnarly. Actually, you can get some really crazy combinations. It's kind of like a roguelike, actually, now that I think about it, where you get like random blessings from certain like deities within the game universe, and some of them they'll have there's like 7 different ones, and they'll all have a different like archetype. Basically, like there's one called the Hunt, and that one is all about raising your character's crit rate and crit damage, and that's like one of the best ones actually. But then there's another one that's like totally built around follow-up attacks or shielding or something like that. So and you'll get these bonuses randomly when you're doing a run, and that's kind of part of the fun is building a blessing composition that is really strong within a run. So that's a cool element. There's also another thing that's kind of more like a Spiral Abyss corollary in this game called Shattered Mirror. They're basically singular challenge battles that you do, and you have to complete them within a certain amount of time. So they're more strict damage stat checks, from what I can tell so far. That's more akin to Spiral Abyss from Genshin Impact. So,
Okay.
but I'm not even all the way through. Like there might be more hidden here that I haven't even seen yet, and I'm already feeling like there's more here than there was at Genshin's launch, and that's a good sign. So I'm feeling pretty optimistic about this game's future. I would say if Genshin is you're kind of tired of Genshin and you're looking for something fresh, this is definitely a game to check out. Same company, so you're going to get a very similar structure to it, and you'll be very familiar very fast. But it's obviously the gameplay is very different. So that's one element, and then I also think if you're um, gotcha games are very specific. I don't know why, but I am one of the people that they appeal to, and Hoyoverse has proven to be a company that has raised the bar significantly on what a gotcha game can actually be. Because gotcha games, generally speaking, are like stupid, shitty little mobile games like Fire Emblem Heroes or like Final Fantasy Brave Exvius or Fate Grand Order. They're like really simple games that you can play on your phone. Hoyoverse has upped that bar pretty significantly in terms of what a gotcha game can really be. So there are other ones out there though. There's this one I've been hearing about called Wuthering Waves that I sent you a video of earlier this week, and that
Yeah.
game is not out yet, but dude, that game looks fucking sick. Like
Yeah.
has legit actual combat, like Devil May Cry or Bayonetta style combat, or like Nier Automata. Much more in that vein of game, and if that game can hit the quality bar of these games, with that combat, I might be jumping over to something like that when it does come out. But I'll be keeping my eye on that one certainly.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, other than that, I have I have I spent $5 this past week. I have not spent money otherwise. I bought the daily um premium currency thing because it like legitimately in this game, these two games, it's like actually a really good value. You pay $5 and they give you like 3,000 of the premium currency, which is like 4 or 5 times as much as you would buy if you bought it like flat out. So that's the only thing I've spent money on. Otherwise, I haven't paid anything so far. And have gotten really lucky with my pulls though. I did the 50 pull that gets you a guaranteed 5-star, and then I did my first 10 pull in standard banner. I got another 5-star, which was super fucking lucky, dude. So I actually have 3 5-stars right now. I got enough currency to pull on the current limited banner, and I got 1 5-star from that, but I did not get the character that's featured, unfortunately, which was really sad. So I'm working my way towards hopefully getting enough pulls to guarantee her before that banner goes away, because I actually really want the character. But yeah, so game's fun, definitely. I'm liking it a lot. I think it's pretty well made, and I like the fact that there's not a lot of content right now. I know that's going to eventually change, where it'll be this bloated mess like Genshin is, but I think it's nice. It's small enough right now that I think you can get through everything the game has probably in like 40 hours, maybe 50 hours, and that's actually something manageable, I think, for most people. So, okay, I've been talking about that for fucking a while, but do you have any interest in it? I know I showed it to you a little bit, but
I'm not too sure yet. I don't know. I'm not yet. I don't think so yet. I don't know. For some reason, I'm really interested in the Wonder Waves, but
yeah,
even that is like I don't know. Gotcha games just
yeah,
turn me off because they're
you're
gotcha.
getting into a realm. Yeah, it's not a place I would recommend most people go,
Yeah.
because it's very dangerous. I think for a lot of people, like there's a streamer I was watching. He had his roommate also streams and was playing Honkai, and she spent like $500 on pulls on this game because she decided that she wanted an all small character team.
Oh my
So
god.
she kept pulling until she got all the small characters and could make a team. Um, yeah, that's the kind of degeneracy that happens in these games. Like you convince yourself that you need something, whatever fucking dumb reason it is, and then all of a sudden the wallet's coming out and you're spending a fuck ton of money on this shit. So yeah, be very careful if you do dabble in these games. If you have any kind of addictive tendency towards gambling, I would really recommend just staying clear, period, of this stuff. So, obviously, do what you want. If you have the money, you can afford it. I mean, I've spent a lot of money on Genshin, but it's not like I don't bank. I haven't never bankrupted myself to do it. It's all money that's just whatever funny money for me. So,
Yeah.
um, but if you're not in that position and you have addictive tendencies towards gambling, don't fucking touch these games. Like, please do not. So that's it. That's my TED talk. All right, Montreal, what are you playing?
I'm playing League of Legends. We play a little bit Apex Legends. Um, so they did a ban wave. You can definitely tell. We've been having a lot more successful games. We've been playing. Um, I don't know. It feels a lot better for right now. This is the end of the season, so I'm pretty sure a lot of cheaters or hackers are probably moving on to other games by now. And we'll see next season, which is next week, how it plays. Especially like 2 or 3 weeks, especially about 3 or 4 weeks into the next season. That's usually like where the bulk of everyone comes back, like the peak of Apex. I know people were like, "Oh, it's the beginning," but to me, it's the actual middle when a lot of the stuff fizzles out, and it's like the main group of people there. And I really want to see if they got rid of like cheaters and stuff. Not all of them, but just see the quality go down because they're supposed to be doing a whole bunch of changes next season or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, as far as I've been playing Jedi Survivor, so um, I don't really have too much to say. Um, if you play Jedi Outcast, or I'm sorry, not Jedi Outcast, but
Fallen
um
Order.
Fallen Order, play Jedi Fallen Order. Um, it's a little bit. It's an extension of that game as far as like the combat and everything like that. They didn't really go too crazy. I thought they would have been a lot crazier, but they still kept it grounded. Which I guess is what this game was going for. Some of the power you do get more powerful moves and everything, and you can use the force in more powerful ways. But it's not too crazy. It's not if you're expecting anything on force and leash level, it's not that. It's more grounded. You do get I don't want to spoil the styles and everything you get, but you do get more styles to use your lightsaber and everything of that nature, which is cool. But like I said, it's still not like I'm the type of person like it's weird. So I do like games, action games like um Dark Souls and things of that nature. Uh I would consider Sekiro a little bit in the middle of the games that I like, but then I also
Yeah.
like crazy games like, Metal Gear Rising, Devil May Cry, and
Hmm.
Bayonetta, and all that shit. And this game is definitely on the Dark Souls spectrum, but it's more so like Bloodborne, I'll say that. It's not as fast as Bloodborne, but it's almost there as far as like how the speed of the game is, but it's definitely not as slow as Dark Souls. Um so like I said, they continued that or whatever. I think everything else, like the story is really good. I think I know where they're going with the story.
Hmm.
Um and how it ties into it's almost like a cop out, to be honest with you. I think I know what they're about to do, but I'm not sure yet. Um but how it ties into the main trilogy or the original trilogy and everything like that. Because this game takes place between
Yeah.
3 and 4.
Yep.
But this one's a little bit either before or after or during 4. So he's like fighting with the rebellion because it takes place years in the like Cal was like a teenager in Fallen Order. He's old in this game. Not old, but he's like
Oh.
our age. He's like
Okay.
28, 29 maybe in this game. He has like a full
Interesting.
beard and everything like that. Yeah, he like you'll get all this in the opening credits, so I'm not spoiling anything for you. Like he's separated from uh Seer, I
Yeah.
think her name is,
Yeah.
and his other friend, they're separated, and he's actually been fighting like with the rebellion or doing his own thing, so he's like a rogue rebellion person. He's been fighting, he fought on Kashyyyk with the Wookiees and everything like that. He
Yeah.
did some stuff over
Huh.
there and everything like that of that nature, so he is like full blown into it. So I think this is like right
Yeah.
where Obi-Wan Kenobi meets Luke and everything like that.
Yeah. This is
um
interesting though, because they're getting into dangerous territory.
yes,
If he,
which is
if he,
why I think the ending they're going with is going to be a
yeah.
cop out, but it's the only way they can do that type of story that they have. If that
Okay.
makes any sense.
Yeah, because I
Um,
mean, yeah, him fighting with the rebellion, like, because in the movies, the Jedi were like a wondrous thing to people, like they hadn't been around in a long time and nobody knew who they were, so you're playing with fire
yes.
by having him interact with people
So he's not
adjacent.
interacting with the rebellion directly. In the game,
Okay.
he's never interacting with the rebellion directly. He's always doing stuff on the side. Like,
Okay.
if that makes any sense. Like he's like almost like a mercenary. But he's on the rebellion side, so he only takes jobs that's against the empire. He's pretty much like a rogue faction that's against the empire, and he just does little hits to them
Yep.
here and there and everything like that. And he gives his data from what I've gathered so far. He gives his information to the people who are fighting and everything like that, because there are still certain members of the republic in this game as well. So it's like right on the cusp of like 4, like 3, like I would say it's more so if you play or if you watch Rogue One, it's like right there in that time continuum. Or if you watch
Yeah,
Star
which that
Wars
I mean that
Rebels,
literally happens right before, yeah, 4
yeah.
starts.
Or if
Yeah.
you watch like Star Wars Rebels, and that was between 3 and 4, it's on more so like the last 25% between 3 and 4. Uh,
Okay.
that's where this game is at, if that makes any sense. Because the Empire is already expanded, they're still expanding, and I don't know. It's just a very interesting. You go in worlds that you never heard before, which I think is really cool. They have created for him to make worlds and everything like that. But you do hear about other worlds that you're already on, like Coruscant and everything of that nature. Uh, so I just think it's really interesting. Um, and they do also talk about people also talk about how scarce Jedi's are. So people do know about Jedi's, but they're like, I haven't seen one of your kind in a while. They'll say something like that when they see you or whatever. Um, yeah, so it's just weird, and I think I know what they're going to do with the timeline, but it's just weird where they're going with this and everything like that. Or not weird, but I think it's very interesting rather. Um, Performance issues or the gameplay. The gameplay, like I said, is really good. Uh, I play on performance mode, and I'm barely getting. Well, I haven't played since the patch came out, so I'll take this back probably later next week. But when I was playing before the patch came out, I was barely getting 50 frames. Like some areas, I would get 60, but that's like rare. I was getting like mainly 50 frames. Majority of the game, I'll say I was playing 30 frames on performance mode, um, which is crazy to me. Uh, the game has huge drops because in this game, I can't remember in Fallen Order because it's been so long since I played that game. But I remember the areas being kind of small. There weren't any huge areas.
Yeah,
This game,
it was more Uncharted like.
yeah. So this game is more like um open linear. Like there are huge areas in this game.
Like God of War.
Yeah. It God of War 2 in particular.
Yeah.
God of War Ragnarok in particular. Uh
I don't want to
there are
do
like
that.
quests that you can do on the side and everything like that. They call them rumors.
Yeah.
So you can do those rumors and everything like that. But the world is way bigger than it was in Fallen Order. Um, and there are several worlds. I only unlocked 2 of them so far. But I think there are like either maybe 3 or 4 worlds. I think there's like going to be a third world or a fourth world. But like I said, like
Mm-hmm.
they're kind of big so far. Um, and yeah, I mean like the lightsaber combat is really good. I think the thing I don't like still about the lightsaber combat is how wonky the arms are for everybody. Especially the animation, especially for Cal. I feel like his arm is just so wonky when he like collides and parries. Like I
Yeah.
don't know how to describe it. It just feels like a ragdoll effect. But it's like it's not necessarily a ragdoll effect. It just feels too bouncy. That's the word. There you go. It feels way too
Mm.
bouncy. When you parry somebody, the animations, and it just looks very jarring at times. And I can see how that can turn someone off. It's not like Sekiro, and I think that's a fair comparison. I think I can compare it to Sekiro, because they both have the same kind of combat system that they're going for, and it's nothing like Sekiro as far as that. Like Sekiro is very clean, the way the parry animations hit and everything like that. This game still suffers from Fallen Order syndrome, where it's like very kind of wonky. The parry windows are great, better in this way better in this game. But it's still wonky. The animations themselves are still wonky as fuck. Sometimes Cal has very wonky animations just running. It just feels the game still feels a little bit wonky. It still feels like they rushed this game, if that makes any sense. It still feels like I know they've been working on this game for years, but it still feels like they uh for Fallen Order, they did the same process for Fallen Order that they did for this game. And it didn't feel like they tried to improve anything, if that makes any sense. Because they were like, well, what needs to be improved? We're just going to expand on other things.
Yeah. Well, like they
Um,
use the same engine, and some of the animations are the
exactly.
same. You know, which
Yeah.
again, not necessarily a bad thing, but if they're not fluid, that's something they. Well, I would hope you would have tried to fix in a sequel.
Yeah. So that's another big concern for me. I'm, like I said, I'm an action game fucking snob. That's the word I'm looking for. I'm an action game snob. So, like, I like clean fucking animations and everything in my action games. In this game, it it just doesn't look that clean still. I had the same criticisms for Fallen Order, and I was hoping they would like take that and do it. But this is a prime example of if you don't criticize it enough, it doesn't get fixed. And it didn't get fixed here. The animations, in my opinion, are still lackluster. Um, they're still underwhelming. Uh, some of them are still wonky. I don't know. The game is still like an 8 out of 10 for me, but sometimes it feels like a 7.5, and then sometimes it feels like an 8. Um, when you do the one-on-one combats with certain enemy types, it feels fucking good. I don't like going against the stormtroopers because they are all one shot, even at the hardest mode. I'm playing at the hardest mode right now, and even at the hardest mode, they're one shots.
I kind
And
of
like,
like that though. I like that. They should be. I mean, they're fucking like lightsabers rip them to shreds. I mean,
yeah, and I get that, but sometimes it's just like I don't. I feel like so far in the game, and I think I'm like 35-40% into the game right now. I feel like I don't get enough of those enemies where I get to use my lightsabers to its full extent, if that makes any
not enough
sense.
tanky enemies.
Yeah, like I need enemies to like actually combat me. And I'm playing further in the game and I'm getting a lot more of those enemies. But yeah, it just feels really weird sometimes. Uh Another thing I do like though is the force powers. I think they upgraded all the force powers and everything of that in every way. They feel way more powerful. So you are able to handle multiple enemies on the screen with your force. And you feel like it is an actual component to the game and everything of that nature, excuse me, in the game. So I do have to position myself in certain scenarios when I'm fighting like maybe two or three, dual wielding saber guys or whatever the case may be. I have the position and I'm fighting like stormtroopers in the same vein. Um there can be a lot of enemies on screen and it can be very, very, very intense. But like I feel like I still have all the tools to fight these enemies, if that makes any sense, especially with your lightsaber and everything like that.
Mhm.
So there's never a moment where I feel overwhelmed in the game. And I actually welcome like a lot of the enemies. A lot of people I think won't like that they added so many enemies and the game is almost designed to be 1v1, but they added a lot of more enemies on the screen. But I feel like that's where your force powers come into play. And you can actually target enemies and do combos and stuff like that without targeting them. Cal would target the nearest enemy, and the camera will kind of adjust for you as well, and it'll be like in a more cinematic view, compared to like just doing a standard Dark Souls targeting thing or whatever. And I think it is a fair comparison to compare it to Dark Souls because they have the bonfire or the meditation centers, and when you sit there, you meditate, you skill up, enemies respawn, all that other stuff like that, and everything like that. So I think that is a fair comparison. They did step up one aspect of the game, and that's its platforming. Platforming is way more versatile than it ever was in Jedi Fallen Order. Sometimes I feel like I'm playing a platform game. There are just complete sections of just platforming, and I love every
Ooh, I
section.
love that.
I love every moment of it. Um,
So, like, are you talking like? I guess I don't know if you have context for this, but like the old Prince of Persia games, the 3D ones from like
yes,
the
yes,
aughts. Yeah.
yes.
Oh,
They're
that's awesome. Fuck
they're
yeah. That's
like they're actual puzzles that revolve around your platforming.
yeah.
They're not to the extent of old Prince of Persia, but I feel like they're almost there. You can turn off hints, and if you turn off hints, the game I feel like rewards you better if you turn off hints. And I did turn off hints as soon as I started playing the game because they have the accessibility pad almost to the extent of like The Last of Us 2, and you can do all that. You can customize your play through and everything like that. And I turned off hints. And certain areas, I was like genuinely stumped on certain areas. But I refused to look up like how to do stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, if I jump to this wall, this wall is jumpable. Okay, I'll do this and I'll do this and I'll do that. And yeah, it works. So I actually appreciate that. And I know a lot of people were like, man, if Fallen Order wanted to play or if Respawn, just give Respawn a fucking a platforming IP so they can make a platforming game. And I actually appreciate that. I think a lot of games are missing platforming. Like I just don't want to fight character
Yeah.
to character to character.
I agree. Well,
So I
interesting
actually appreciate.
platforming, like yeah, like those old Prince of Persia games had really cool platforming puzzles, in them, and I
Yeah,
just feel like not enough games like play with that idea. Because, dude, like Uncharted is like the platforming 3D platforming game, the linear 3D platforming game, and I never
yeah,
felt like that game ever fulfilled what I was looking for out of like a platforming 3D adventure game,
yeah.
Um,
And I didn't see any. I didn't watch any reviews, but I'm pretty sure the reviews did mention the platforming. But as far as like players and everything like that, and I didn't see anyone mention the platforming, and I think the platforming really needs to stand out in this game. It is fucking phenomenal. I love the platforming puzzles. I love the platforming from section to section.
awesome.
You can unlock shortcuts, so you don't have to
Yeah.
do it again. But to me, sometimes it's so fun. I go back and do it anyway because it's just so much fun.
Yeah,
Um,
no, it's I think it's a good I'm glad you're saying this cuz I think this is like a lost thing with 3D games. I think Uncharted kind of ruined platforming for
yeah,
gaming for a while because I think everybody started copying the way Uncharted did it and all we get are like the Horizon or God of War platforming where it's like they have these like you're climbing a cliff, right, and there's this like painted section that's fucking like indicates where you can get your handholds and stuff like that kind of shit. Then like
yeah,
platforming can be a lot more interesting than this. I don't know when we lost our creativity for platforming in a 3D game because it like yeah, I just think of those old Prince of Persia games, man, and there were entire rooms where you didn't fight an enemy. It was like gigantic fucking multi-story rooms where it's a giant platforming puzzle, like
yeah,
3D
and
platforming puzzle,
they definitely have that in this game.
That's awesome. I
And
love
as
that.
far as like they don't have indicators like the white paint or whatever here. They just have like different textures on the wall. So if the wall is kind of like scruffed and scratched, that means like, oh, I can run up this wall or whatever. They do have certain indicators where you can like grapple hook or something like that. But that's like that's like a given or whatever. Um, but I don't know. It's just really cool. It doesn't feel like it goes out its way to tell you where to go unless you actually put on indicators. The game doesn't really tell you where to go. As far as that, it's just like the level design. That's the word I'm looking for. The level design is really fucking good in this game. Like there aren't any like painted walls per se. At least I can't really tell. There are some I can tell where it's like, okay, it really wants me to go this way or whatever. But the level will kind of just guide you, even though it's like an open world type deal. There are like different like power ups and stuff like that throughout the world that you have to kind of figure out how to get to that power up, and it's almost like a Super Mario type deal with the Jedi. I fucking love it. I think it's really fucking cool. I don't think they get enough praise for that. Everybody's praising the combat. Like I said, I didn't listen to any reviews of the game because I went dark, but I was really blown away so far, and I'm pretty sure the platform is going to get even better in the game.
Mhm.
But every time I unlock a new platform ability, I'm just like stoked because I'm like, this is one more thing I can do, or whatever the case may be. So I actually love that, and I'm glad it's coming back. I'm glad they're bringing that back. I hope gamers don't. If I read a review, I hope they don't bash that part of the game because that's one part that I absolutely fucking love. I agree with you. I felt like in God of War Ragnarok, in my opinion, all the platformings were excuses for loading.
Absolutely,
Like,
it's a waste of your time. Yeah.
yeah,
No.
especially like one
Yeah.
for me, right? When a trace is going up the fucking wall, I feel like that was nothing but a giant loading screen. In my
No.
opinion, it was so fucking useless. Like I didn't, I don't know.
Yeah, and dude, if you want to be really critical of like the Uncharted games, like if you go play those games, like it's a very cinematic platforming experience. It's all fake. Like you could literally like the game will make you feel like you need to move fast, but you don't actually need to move fast. Like you can
Yeah.
stand there and do nothing, and nothing will happen until you
Okay.
trigger the moment that you've hit the invisible rope that like cuts the fucking line, and then the cliff falls apart. Like
Yeah.
that is very common in the Uncharted games, and I think people have unfortunately I think that's become such a common way of doing platforming in 3D games that people have become convinced that that is the way you do it, and that's good. That's like good 3D platforming, and I'm not saying it's bad. At its best, it is very cinematic and can be very fun. There are parts in Uncharted that are really awesome, like the platforming is like really fucking cool. Like I'm thinking of Uncharted 1, for example, when you're climbing into the ruins of the fortress for the first time, and they zoom out on this gigantic fucking cliff face that you're trying to scale, basically, and they leave it zoomed out as you're platforming throughout it, and it's a really cool moment in that game. But it does get old when you've done it for 4 games, but it's so I don't know. I think it's be more creative. I want studios to encourage studios to be more creative with 3D platforming because I think like if you go back and look at those like 3D Prince of Persia's, there were elements of those games where there is definitely interpretation on how you can get through certain sections of the game.
Yeah.
And it's not all just some linear path necessarily to complete certain things. And I think you can give players tools and give them challenges where they need to figure out how to use those tools to get through an environment.
Yeah,
I think that's more of what I'm looking for out of platforming in games at this point. As I want to get back to that, I guess.
yeah, and this game definitely has that. There's one Jedi temple that I had to go to, and I had to do platforming, and I had to use certain elements of the Force to move certain objects and carry it here and there. And there was one point like I was like legitimately stumped, and I had to think like, okay, I had to look around. I was like, oh, okay, I think I got it, and I did get it, but it took me like maybe 20 minutes to get through that part. Which is like kind of I haven't felt like that in a while. It has
Mm,
the last game that really gave me a you know, and this is old, but like was like not the Tomb Raider remakes, but like the original Tomb Raider. Like I
mm.
love the platforming puzzles in the original Tomb
Yeah.
Raider.
Yep.
And I
I've seen footage, and yeah,
yeah,
definitely that evokes what I'm talking about, I guess, or what
yeah,
we're talking about.
and I think that's why people love the original. I think people didn't understand why they loved the original Tomb Raider so much, but it was that it was the platforming puzzles with a little bit of action here and there. But majority of Tomb Raider levels were just fucking platforming. That's all it was, with like combat here and there, especially the original Tomb Raider. And that's why I think for like the remakes, it I like the remakes or the remakes. I did like the remakes, but I hated that it took the Uncharted route. It just went like, oh, we're just going to do linear platforming. That's fucking it. And they did do
Yeah.
that. Um, and then everybody else kind of did that as well. But yeah, this game it kind of like did away with that. And I'm hope other developers take that aspect of the game and do it because that's why I actually liked about this game because you're very mobile. Like, yeah, it's Dark Souls action combat or whatever, right? But they took their own spin with it and they're like, let's add actual platforming to it. Like Dark Souls has platforming, but it's like oh you gotta take advantage of the roll frames and stuff like that and or whatever the case may be. But it's not to the extent of this game and I fucking love it. Yeah, but I think the frame rate issue was really bad. I actually can't believe they released the PC version the way they did. I think they should delay the PC
Mm.
version. It was actually despicable how the PC version was running. I watched videos of it, and it was the same through and through and through uh, for that game. And there was one more thing I was supposed to talk about with Jedi Fallen. Like, what was it? I had it written down, but do you remember what I was supposed to talk about with it?
No,
I
I have
know
no idea what's in your brain, Montrell.
no, it was something you're like, well, you can talk about it when we talk about Fallen Order. I
Oh
can't.
shit. Was it something when you put in the in our
Oh
text thread?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So a lot of people or one of my friends rather was like, well, what's the difference between how come Fallen Order gets a pass for its performance issues, but everyone says it's a good game, but then Redfall has performance issues and everyone says it's a bad game. And uh I think he kind of weaseled his way out of like the argument because he was trying to say because he changed it like midway through in my opinion. But like he was trying to, in my opinion, his first argument was since they both have performance issues, they're both bad games.
Yeah.
And he was trying to say like there's a bias there. No one was talking about Fallen Order. Like that was his original tweet. And then he kind of, as I was talking to him more about it, he was
Yeah.
just like, well, I was trying to say, bro, like, you know, good games can have performance issues as well, but they're still good games. And I'm like, yeah, I agree with that take. Like there
Yeah, and
can
I
be
don't think anyone was giving this game a pass on PC, dude. The
no,
PC version of this game was getting fucking roasted from what I
it,
could
it,
tell.
it
So,
even the console version. I saw
yeah.
people complaining. I was one of the people complaining about the console version. The frame rate issue is fucking horrendous sometimes. It downright gets to 25 frames sometimes.
Oof.
Um
Wow.
in the game.
Bad.
But the game experience is still fun when it's working, if that makes any sense.
It's a quality
So
game that has literal technical performance issues.
exactly. Now you take something like Redfall, for instance, where I feel like even if that game was up to snuff as far as quality or as far as bugs and frame rate, the overall gameplay itself in the
Yeah.
game loop is not fun. So therefore, it's still a bad game. And I think
Yeah.
people misconflate that too. And I think people don't understand too. Like I don't want to get into Cyberpunk again, but they don't understand too why I don't like Cyberpunk. And I was trying to explain to people, like, even if this game did not have bugs, and I played the PC version, I had very limited bugs in my PC experience.
Mm,
I did not like the game. I don't think the game qualifies the hype. I just don't fucking see it. Everyone's
mm,
telling me, "Hey, this game is just amazing, Montrell. You gotta give it a chance." I did give it a chance. It's a bad game to me. Like, it's not good, and it's like, well, maybe it's just not for me. But in my opinion, if everything was right for the game, it's just still a bad game, in my opinion. And uh, I think he was trying to say the same thing for Jedi Fallen Order because he doesn't like Jedi. I'm not Fallen Order, but he doesn't like Jedi Survivor or Fallen Order or whatever.
yeah.
And he was trying to say, like, well, how come you guys are giving this game an excuse? And it's like, it's not. I'm not giving the game an excuse, or I'm not saying you know, that the game is bad because of performance issues. I'm saying that the game is being held back by the performance issues. And I think people need to understand there's a difference between a game being held back by performance issues and there's a difference between a game being bad and having performance issues.
Yeah.
Um,
Double whammy.
like, yeah, like for instance, right? I think Anthem at its core is a phenomenal fucking game, right? But the content and the bugs that it had held it back from its true potential. Now, if that
Mm,
all that was fixed, Anthem would be a great fucking game. Like, it would be. Can't deny that. I don't think anyone can deny
mm,
that. I don't think anyone can play Anthem and be like, this game is trash. The gameplay loop that we played, we were like, I see the vision. The
yeah.
game is actually solid. Like the gameplay loop that you want. There's no content there, and then it was like some bugs and everything like that. It wasn't there. You know
God, I
what I'm
can't believe they
saying?
fucked that game up. Ugh.
Yeah. See, you see
I
when you
mean,
think about it, you're
I
like,
have criticisms for the game that, like, like, I think the melee systems needed to be improved as well. I don't think
yeah,
the melee combat in the game was very interesting as like the interceptor, but I do agree with you though that the core gameplay loop was very fun at its core. That moment to moment gameplay in combat, traversal, flying around, the flight was crazy good. My god.
yeah,
Like, I remember all that for sure. It's just everything else around the game, that the lack of content, the design of some of the areas, like the dungeons you go to and the quests,
hmm,
and the the design of the game systems, like all that shit sucked ass. It's like
yeah.
it's a damn shame, because I bet the gameplay team for that fucking game still to this day is like super proud of what they put together.
They
Because
should
yeah,
be.
they made a
They
really
should
like
be.
good game from a gameplay, pure gameplay. Like, they
I,
made a really good game,
I'm
but
really hoping the elements of that game make it into like Mass Effect or Dragon
Mass
Age
Effect,
because
that would
that,
be fucking, dude. No, Mass
yeah,
Effect, that would be sick in Mass Effect, dude. I agree with you, because I mean, I do think there are elements of Andromeda kind of in Anthem,
I was
a little bit.
that's another
Yeah.
good example, right, of a game that um the core loop is really good. It's just everything surrounding it, in my opinion, is bad. Like the writing to me is bad, and everything of that nature. The
Yeah, and
characters don't.
dude, I had some issues with readability of the game. Like, when I
Hmm.
was playing, like, because I remember playing it when I tried to play it. The combat, I felt the combat was good, but I felt like some of the reticles and the stickiness of certain aspects of the game, of the combat, just like was not all the way tuned right. Like, it wasn't
Yeah,
tight enough. There was some looseness to it that made it not play as well as I would hope.
yeah,
But I see what they were going for there.
yeah. And
So
to me, that's another example of a really great game, a really great quarter. Because the gameplay loop for Mass Effect Andromeda, when you're like playing the game and it works, and you're in combat, like besides your teammates AI fucking suck. But you as the player, it was fucking phenomenal. Like I was just like, man, being a
yeah,
Pathfinder and being able to switch different classes on the fly and just do crazy combos and stuff like that was actually insane. And I hope that makes its way. I hope they do not scrap the combat and they put that in the new Mass Effect because that shit was actually fucking insane.
yeah,
But yeah, like for Fallen Order, I feel like it's the same thing, or not the same thing. I feel like every aspect of Fallen Order is really good. Like the combat, I already talked about the combat and everything. I was wonky and everything like that. So the game's not perfect, but to to when the game is working and it's majority of the time, 90% of the time is working, or 80% of the time is working on console. And that 80% I'm enjoying, I'm like, yeah, this game is fucking good. Then when that 20%, when the game slows down or is getting kind of crazy and stuff like that, and there are certain bugs here and there, then I'm like, oh my fucking God, you know? But like those bugs can be fixed.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like I said, with Redfall or other fucking games, even if the bugs weren't there, the game is still lacking. It's not a good game. So I just wanted to clarify that, and everything of that nature. So yeah.
Okay. Well, let's transition this into a discussion about Redfall. So,
Okay.
Redfall has come out and it is fucking bombing hard. This game is a 59 on Metacritic. That's the critic score, and it is a 2.7 user rating. This game is absolutely tanking right now, and it to the point that Phil Spencer did an interview with Kind of Funny today. In fact, this went live today. He wasn't on specifically to talk about Redfall. This was like a scheduled interview they had, and it just happened to turn into an interview about Redfall and Xbox in general as a result. So I guess I was able to listen to the entire interview. It's about 40 minutes, and I thought it was a pretty good interview in the sense that Phil was pretty candid. I had some points that I went over with you that I was talking about this, but people are talking about this a lot. But so there were some things he said in the interview that I kind of want to talk about
Yep.
specifically. And the first thing he said that kind of caught my ear was he admitted in the interview that during the marketing for Redfall, they had a video of gameplay on IGN that was running at 60 frames per second on PC. And he acknowledged that that happened knowing the game was going to launch at 30 frames per second. And he specifically criticized himself on that, saying that that's something that they Xbox need to be better about with in terms of being transparent, is not doing that kind of thing, and that because that is a misleading thing. You are misleading people by showing the game at 60. You're setting the expectation that it's going to be running at 60.
Yeah.
And this is a small thing. It's a thing that's not talked about that much anymore. This is kind of similar to that conversation around, you remember, like Watch Dogs back in the
Oh yeah.
day,
Mhm.
when the whole graphical fidelity controversy where a game would be shown and it has these amazing graphics, and then it would come out and it would look like a PS3 game.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. It's in that same vein, I think. But so he did actually admit that and acknowledge that as a real thing that happened, which I found very interesting. Certainly, commendable, the honesty there. Um, and then the next thing he mentioned was this was another interesting admission, that he said that they need to be better. They being Xbox, they need to be
Mhm.
better about engaging with games that are in the middle of development when Xbox acquires the studio that's making the game. So they were talking about, I think this was in context to Redfall, is that this game I think was in development, it sounds like, when they acquired Bethesda, and they kind of didn't like go super hands on with it. They kind of let it go and be its own thing. And he's saying that they need to be better about engaging earlier upon the acquisition with those games and giving resources or potentially direction or things like that. So that's another interesting omission to me, and that that's something we had speculated about on the show. We have no proof, of course, but speculated about the hands-on nature of Phil Spencer's leadership with
Mhm.
Xbox. Kind of a little bit of an omission that we might be a little bit right about that. He was talking in specifically to context to things getting acquired, to companies getting acquired, but I wouldn't be surprised if this applies to
I,
other games.
yeah, I think this applies to every studio that released games so far. Because I mean, we looked at some of the games that they released so far, or they had to go back on a drawing board on.
Mhm.
To me, one game that sticks out is Bleeding Edge from Ninja Theory.
Yeah.
I don't know what the fuck that game was supposed to be. I still don't know what the fuck that game was supposed to be. I watched gameplay of it. It was like a team arena fighter ish type game,
Mhm.
and I can like when we said it like earlier today or earlier today, but some previous podcast episodes, like Phil Spencer and Xbox, they're trying to be so hands off. They're trying to be like the cool dad, right? Oh yeah, you can come over and smoke pot at my house, bro. I don't give a fuck,
Yeah.
whatever. And like they were trying to be the cool guy and everything like that because they had such a bad reputation, which I really don't know where it came from besides Bungie. Uh, that's the
Yeah.
only studio I understood. They were like, and that's because they really wanted to make more fucking Halos, right? So they were like on their ass. But I think they gave them creative freedom when they did the Halo games or whatever. And I think that's where the characterization of Bungie or Xbox came from. Um, and Phil Spencer wanted to be more open and loose and everything like that. And yeah, I think it just backfired. I think some of these studios need direction. I think Nintendo, we don't hear anything about Nintendo because that's an Eastern company and they're very hush hush about how they do stuff in Eastern companies in general. I think Square Enix may be the most open about what they do, and that's limited about what they do, uh, as far as interaction with the developers and everything of that nature. Um,
Yeah.
but I think Sony, for instance, I think they're directly involved with like every aspect of their games, in my opinion. Like
Yeah.
there is a reason why we talked about it and criticized them for it, but there's a reason why The Last of Us, God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, or Horizon in general, feel kind of samey. And I think that's because Sony is like, listen, this is the stuff that sells. These are quality experiences. Yes, it is samey and it is like, casualized or whatever the fuck you want to call it, but it sells, and I think they realize that, and the developers themselves realize, okay, we can't just go to them with this type of thing. We have to kind of pitch it in a way where the Zex will give us money for it. Whereas with Xbox, I feel like they were just greenlighting everything. And to me, the one example of that is that Obsidian, even though I heard it's a really good game, the Obsidian 2D side
Pentiment.
scrolling, yeah, Pediment. What's it called? I'm sorry.
Pentiment. Yeah.
Pentiment, where they literally said in an interview, they're like, "Yeah, we've been working on it for like 8 months, bro." And then we brought it to their attention, like, 'cause we were
Yeah.
scared,
That was
you know?
crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. I can't believe nobody. It's weird that that just like went under the radar. I feel like.
yeah, and I still don't hear no one talk about it to this day. That's insane to me. Like, even though it paid off for them, because I heard it's a really good game, um, that's just fucking insane to me. Like, I don't know. That's just fucking insane to me. Like, that's really fucking weird. Um, Yeah, and that they didn't know anything about it. And I feel like Redfall is, unfortunately, we're seeing the lack of leadership in all their games. Like, what the fuck was Everwild? We still don't know what Everwild is. What the fuck is
Yeah.
Rare doing? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
And then Grounded.
yeah, and grounded.
Sea of Thieves. I mean, these are so. I want to piggyback off your point real quick though,
Yeah.
and say that Phil in the interview was very clear that this is like a core tenet of the way he leads. Is
Okay.
he does not want to run these studios in a way where he forces them to do specific things. He wants them to have the freedom to choose what they want to do, and he did cite like Grounded, Pentiment, Sea of Thieves as
Okay.
games in that sphere. There's nothing wrong with that per se. Like I'm not gonna get on Phil for allowing teams to have that freedom. Like that's
Yeah.
great, dude. Like
Yep.
I love that you're creating a creative environment like that for your teams. The problem, this is the issue, and this is gonna get into a core. This is like a core point of what I want to talk about here. Is that I think Phil, when he talks publicly, he does these interviews. He is really, really good at talking.
Yeah.
Like really good, dude. Like he had me on his side. Like, oh fuck yeah, Phil. Like, like. But when I think about it, I'm like, man, he's really good at PR. Like this guy is an excellent front man for Xbox. Like fucking incredible. Like he is the perfect guy for their brand. To like lead that public image. He's also really good at strategy, because he talked about this a lot in the interview too. I really recommend people listen to it because he talked about the last thing I wrote down here is he talked about kind of their strategy around console, cloud, Game Pass, all this stuff. And he was saying that people get on them for not pursuing the Sony strategy as much, like trying to sell consoles. And he said that like it's too late for that. We lost that. Like when we because he said that we lost the worst generation to lose when we lost the Xbox One generation,
Yeah.
because that was when digital libraries became a thing for users, not for the consoles. He's not talking about like selling on a store. He's talking about people having a digital library that follows them. And that
Yeah.
became a thing during this past generation, PS4 and Xbox One. And he's right about that. And he said that losing that allowed Sony and Nintendo to get a foothold to the point that it is hard. It is really difficult now to pull somebody out of those ecosystems and bring them over to yours.
Yes.
And he's totally 100% right about that. I think it's an excellent point on his
I
part.
do too.
However, I think this so he's really smart when it comes to that overall kind of macro strategy too. Like he gets the industry, he understands the way the industry is moving and how
Hmm.
Xbox can fit into that. I think that's another one of his strengths. The thing he's not good at, I think Microsoft really needs to examine the idea of maybe bringing in a partner for him, like a co-head of Xbox,
Hmm.
that is much more focused on the day-to-day like operations side of running these teams, because I
Yeah.
just don't feel like Phil is very good at that. And it's playing out in the releases that they've had of games. I
Yeah.
think there's some of these releases they're getting lucky, right? Like Hi-Fi Rush, very highly rated. They had another game that he mentioned called Age 2 or something like that. That's
Hmm.
also pretty well received. And then what came out of theirs? It
Well,
came out with
even Sea of Thieves is doing really well. Like that
Sea of
has a cult.
Thieves, yeah.
That has a cult following
Grounded
right now.
too, yeah. Grounded as well.
And
Like
Grounded, yeah. I know a lot of
Pentiment was
people who
well
love
received,
Grounded.
but they're getting lucky with some of these releases. I think it's just the quality of the
So,
studio and the quality of the teams kind of picking that slack up. I don't necessarily think that's because of Phil's leadership per se. You know?
yeah. So I agree with you. And I don't, and when I criticize him and everything like that, and I said on my Twitter, it's not rocket science. I don't mean to insults him because I think the dude's very fucking smart. Like you said, everything you just mentioned, I agree with you 100%. He does
Yeah.
think the long game. Xbox and themselves are thinking the long game and everything of that nature. Uh, my problem is with him, and you already mentioned it, that he's kind of hands off, and I being the person, I love when I'm working hands off because I've worked with people who are super hands on, and
Yeah,
that's not a great
micromanagers,
experience.
yeah. Right.
Yeah, that's not a great experience. Um, um, but at the same time, like there is a balance that you need to have, and the only part I disagree with is I love the self admission. Like, hey, we lost this generation. That was the worst generation to lose, right? Excuse me. And we need to focus up on the future and everything of that nature. And
Mhm.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. The problem is Sony is doing the same thing. The problem is Nintendo's doing the same thing as far as the future. They already see the digital stuff going and going
Yeah.
crazy. They see that, right? So you're not in an advantage with that. My problem is, what about people that already invested in your ecosystem? What about getting new people to come to your ecosystem? The problem that I don't think he's seen a lot of negativity. I think Xbox in general is seeing a lot of negativity. And that's probably mostly fault of the media and probably gamers. But when this came out, and since he was so honest about it, people were saying, I knew diehard like PlayStation people saying like, I want to give Xbox a chance. I
Yeah.
want to give me a reason to buy it. I want an
Yeah.
Xbox in my house. Like
I'm the
that's
same way. I have one,
yeah,
and I haven't played
I
it
have
in over a year.
yeah, I have one as well. I only play for backward compatibility games. And it's
Yeah.
like, give me a reason to play your Xbox. Because I look at it and I'm like, man, I really want to play it because I'm tired of playing my fucking PlayStation. But there's no other reason to play it. Like, I just play my PlayStation. And the, you need to invest in games that that make people want to play your console. And I understand sometimes being in the industry, you have to deal with the consumer and you are making or maintaining a product. sometimes the person making or maintaining that product doesn't know what the consumer want. They know what they want, but they don't know what the consumer want. And you
Mhm.
need someone there to kind of guide them and be that translator to say like, hey, this is what people want. I know that you guys want to make this type of game, but we have to think, will that game work for the average person or the consumer? Because I can put it in the terms of IT, right? I know how to get past certain stuff and just deal with it. You know what I'm saying? Like I can do
Yeah.
that, right?
Right. Yeah.
I know how to Google stuff and handle the problem myself. The problem is there are users who just know their part of the computer. There are accountants that just know fucking Excel and that's all they fucking know. And that's it. Everything else they're blind to. And I'm like, man, well, what you mean you don't know how to open your calendar, bro? All you gotta do is do this and that third. And it's like your manager is there like Montrell. They know this part. They know how to get to it, but they don't know the ins and outs of Outlook like you do, right? They don't know what to do. Show them how to do it. And I mean, you need that person. That's pretty much why your manager is there. But you need to also know that as an employee or doing IT, you need to have that layman's sense there. Like, okay, they the casual. You need to have a casual sense. Like, okay,
More
they may not
macro
know this.
view, right? Like
Yeah, there you go. That's
understanding
the
the
word I'm looking for.
more
The,
understanding the perspective of that person that you're helping, right? Um,
exactly. That's a good word. Macro. You need to have a macro view of things because me being on the consumer side of things or like dealing with my grandma and things of that nature, right? When I deal with other people, I don't want no IT dude talking to me crazy and like if that was my grandma, like I don't I don't want no IT dude talking to my grandma crazy about, well, you should know how to fucking get to your email, whatever the case may be. Like, I don't want that. So like just dealing with my family as far as that, I learned that warmness or whatever, or that other side of what they want. Because you will listen to what people want and everything of that nature. You're like, man, I just want to be able to click this, bro, and go to that, and it works. And it's like, okay, I can try to get there, but you got to meet me halfway. And I think developers that's the problem with Xbox, right? The developers want to make these games that they think is cool, but with a consumer think is cool. I think Sea of Thieves on paper is fucking awesome. I mean, it shows, right? I mean, they have a cult following, but when it was first released, people were like, and it's
nobody
like
got it. Yeah, nobody
nobody
got
got
it.
it. And
Yeah.
I still feel to this day no one got it. When Grounded came out, like, dude, I feel like Grounded would have been so fucking cool if this was like the early 90s and the 80s when Honey I Shrunk the Kids came out. People
Yeah.
would love
Yeah.
Grounded, bro.
Yeah.
But kids are disconnected from that. And I feel like the developers are our age and they remember Honey I Shrunk the Kids? Wouldn't it be
Yeah,
cool to
absolutely.
play in the world in that like that? Like, and
Yeah.
no one was saying like, bro, Gen Z don't even know what the fuck Honey I Shrunk the
What the
Kids
fuck
are.
is that shit? Honey, I
Yeah,
Shrunk the What are you talking about, dude?
exactly.
Fucking
So
boomer. Jesus.
like, yeah, exactly. Like, and unironically, right? The people that love Grounded are people our age. We're like, yo, I remember Honey I Shrunk the Kids, and now I'm playing that shit.
Yeah.
And that's what
Yeah.
Grounded is. Like,
Yeah.
so you need that medium there. And unfortunately, Phil has to know how to communicate that medium to his team. And that's why, in my opinion, like there needs to be that guy that guides the team and say, like, hey, I know you guys want to make this cool ass, like obscure fucking thing, right? I know you guys want to make it because you saw this fucking one anime that no one else saw, bro. And you like, yo, that'd be so cool as a video game. But no one else saw that shit. You have to learn how to reel that in and bring it to the common person. You know what I'm saying? So,
Mm.
um, yeah, I just feel like Xbox is like lacking that. Halo was supposed to be that, but that was in the opposite direction. I feel
Well,
like
isn't that the prime example though, Halo Infinite of Phil not leading like the
yes,
way how do
yes,
you let that game come out like that, dude? I just
yes.
don't and become I mean like Halo Infinite's like a dead game at this point, isn't it? Like
I
does
mean,
anybody
people
talk
still.
about it? Are people even playing it? Like
I mean, I still
it's
see YouTube videos of people playing it, but they said like the hacker situation has gotten out of control and everything like that. And
yeah.
343 is doing all they can do, but it's like, yeah, what else can you do? Like, what else can you do when you gut it like 40% of the team? You know, like
Yeah.
what can they do to save that game? Um, I think it's unfortunate. I mean, I think another game like that, not like that, but another game that slid under the radar is Gears. Um, it used to be a system seller, but like there are 1,000 games like Gears now. What is Gears bringing to the table to where I want to play Gears? You know, like I
Nothing.
want to go back and play Gears. And it's like I'm not saying Gears is a bad game because Gear 4 was phenomenal, and I heard Gear 5 is phenomenal as far as like what it is, what Gears is. But that's the problem. It's still just like old Gears. You know,
It's
it's
like
like
15 years ago. They're making the same
yeah,
game. Yeah.
exactly. And I know people are like, well, what about Call of Duty? It's the same game, but it's like that has a dedicated fan base. It's casual. It's you can't put that in the same stratosphere on sports. You can't give them the same thing or whatever the case may be. And I actually like the Gears XCOM game. Like I like that concept and that I think it fit or whatever. And I think they should do more stuff like that, like Halo Wars and everything like that. I thought that was like a really cool thing. That would have been really cool if they had made a Halo MOBA because they got the heroes for it and stuff like that from Halo Wars or something
Yeah.
like that. It would have been really fucking cool to do something like that. Um, and then like Halo Infinite, yeah, like you said, how do you let a game 7 years? I think that game was in development, 6 or 7. Like I'll just give it the grace and say 5 to 6 years that game was in development, and it still turned out the way it did. This is your flagship Halo. Master Chief is on the front of the Xbox game, and this is your Mario. And Nintendo would never let Mario come out like this, like at all. It's
Right.
unacceptable.
Yeah.
And I just and then you have a studio like Rare, and everybody loves Rare, and they're just like, what the fuck are they doing? So
Yeah. I know.
it
Everwild, dude. We haven't heard about Everwild in a long time.
yeah, and then you have a company like I mentioned earlier, you have a company like Arcane that has quality. Like I don't like their games, but everyone is like, "Yo, Dishonored, bro. Prey. Oh my god, Deathloop, bro. BioShock 2. Um, uh, I forgot the other game they made, but yeah, all
Oh,
these games.
fuck.
It's like a medieval game. Oh fuck, what was it
I'm
called?
forgetting the name of it. Yeah.
Yeah, but everyone loved that game too. I was like a cult hit for them,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, and like they made Redfall. If you look at that game, besides the art style, you wouldn't even think that's a fucking Arcane game. You're like, this was made by Arcane. Like, what the fuck, bro? Like, how do they do this? How can
Yeah.
they fuck this game up like that? And it's like, it looks bad because they're under your umbrella, you know, and they fucked it up under your umbrella. They were okay until they became under your umbrella. And who knows? Maybe they would. Maybe the same thing would have happened if they weren't under your umbrella. But we don't know. They're under your umbrella. The first rule of management is everything's your fucking fault. So it's your fault. You know, like unfortunately, like
Don't I know it?
so. And I'm in. And I'm props to him for taking the responsibility, but it's also like you're supposed to because you're the
Well,
manager, you're the
dude,
face of
I will
Xbox.
say, he was very, he was very, I almost say like plain in the way he was speaking about it, because there was a lot of him saying like, this and this, and we're planning to start doing this now, but then he would say like, he'd be like, you know what though, I know you guys don't care, like we have to deliver,
Yeah,
that kind of thing. Like
exactly.
he said that stuff in the interview, like too. That was my point about like you got to watch it or listen to it, because I think a lot of the bullet points that I saw on Twitter are just not doing what he was saying justice necessarily. They're making it feel more like he's making excuses, but I don't. He's not making excuses. He's saying that we didn't deliver. We're not delivering in the way our fans want us to deliver, and we have got to do better. And I know you're like, these are words. We need action. Like this has to happen.
Well,
So he's
that's
very self aware of that.
well, that's what's interesting on like on my side of Twitter at least. I'm seeing people saying it's like a defeatist attitude. Like they think they're not making excuses. He's just like, yo, we lost. Like, what was the one NFL coaches that did that shit? Like, yo, we lost.
I don't
And
think he's doing that either, though. I think he's just being realistic, per se. He's because there was one point in the interview where he was saying that there's people who want us to just focus on making super high quality games like Sony. and he was like, "We can't do that." That's when he launched in a diatribe about losing the last generation, and
Yeah, and that's
like,
the part
we're
that
not gonna
everybody
win. We're
clipped.
not gonna win that way. Like if that's all we do, we're not gonna win that way. And that so I think he's trying to forge a different path for Xbox than Sony and Nintendo are on, and that's obviously been clear, through his time there. And I think they're on the right path in this, like, you know, to get there.
See,
But
I
I just
just,
think the thing is, to our point this whole time is
mhm.
Phil has a certain skill set. There are certain things he's really good at, and I think he's losing sight of the fact that you can't just say, like, you need the quality games on top of everything else you're doing. Like, the
Yes,
quality
you
games
need
have
that.
got to come. You can't keep, like, releasing things that are disappointing people, or making huge mistakes with massive franchises like Halo. You cannot allow these things to continue to happen. These games, like Avowed, needs to be good. Like fucking Outer Worlds 2 needs to be fucking good. Starfield, straight up, Starfield
Has
has
to be good.
got to be good, dude. This game cannot come out and be bad. Like it just cannot. This will be devastating for Xbox if that game is not up to snuff. So that's where I think Phil's like not quite the right guy, necessarily. I don't feel like he has that killer instinct with that.
Yeah,
That's
I
why
just
I'm saying he needs a cohort, somebody next to him that's on his level, that is responsible for ushering these games through their design and development pipeline,
yeah,
and coming out at a high quality bar, like meeting Sony's quality, matching Sony's quality, or even
yeah.
exceeding it if they can, like
If they
they
can,
need
yeah.
somebody that is their entire job function, because I just feel
The
like Phil is too stretched to do that,
Yeah, and the problem is I just fundamentally disagree with we can't do what Sony is doing because they have the talent. They have
yeah,
Obsidian, they have Ninja Theory, we've
yeah,
seen what they're doing cuz Hellblade should be a fucking Sony game. The way that
yeah,
game is, the quality of that fucking game. And that
yeah,
was from Ninja Theory, you know? So like they have the manpower to do this stuff. Uh, it's just that they need to enforce it. They need. It sounds like it sounds very like authoritarian, uh, whatever what I'm trying to say.
authoritarian.
Yeah, authoritarian. But it's not. It's just you have to get them. You have to get up and go with them, and uh, yeah, people really want to support Xbox. I think the thing that Xbox doesn't realize I'm gonna be honest with you. I think they got lucky with the 360. I think they got completely fucking lucky with 360.
Definitely. In
Um,
retrospect,
game,
yes.
yeah, I saw a tweet. Somebody tweeted to me, and it made very much sense. Games were cheaper to develop back then. Um, Somehow, even not breaking into the Japanese market, they still were on par with Sony at the end of the generation, even though
Cycle,
Sony
yeah.
overtook them. Um, but they were still, making games and stuff like that, and they still had obscure games on it. I think the thing that people don't understand about Xbox, OG Xbox, the reason why it was so successful is that game. Maybe he was trying to take the same approach that did, but I think they still had some kind of direction. Uh, they were trying different things. They were trying experimental games and all this other stuff like that. They had a diverse library of games that were just like really cool, but had direction, had Fable. That was like groundbreaking at the time what that game was trying to do. Halo, that was groundbreaking to bring a actual functioning competitive first person shooter to a console that rivaled and overtook Quake at the time. Like that was
Yeah.
unheard of at the time,
Yeah.
Um the Unreal Tournament was on that game, like on the console, on OG consoles. Then you had some other obscure games, Ninja Gaiden, uh I can't remember the other games. I think it was called Ogari or something like that. And
Well, they
they
had
had
variety too. They had Japanese RPGs too.
yeah,
They
they had a
a
very
lot of
diverse
um
library.
what's it called? The Lost Odyssey. Like
Lost
they
Odyssey.
Last Remnant was it an exclusive for a while on Xbox too. Like they had they had a good variety of games on the Xbox 360. There was something there for that. Like
Well,
they had
even
Blue Dragon, actually. I remember.
yeah, well, even the OG Xbox. I think that's why the OG Xbox was so successful because they were trying something completely different from Sony. Like they just had random games on there, like Jet Set Radio. Like that shit was just fucking random, and it was on Xbox, and that wasn't on PlayStation at the time. I remember PlayStation was very like Japanese focused, and then Xbox was very like we're gonna do the experimental Western style games. You had Phantom Dust on there. You had fucking Project Gotham Racing. You had Dead or
Jade
Alive. That's a
Empire,
Japanese game. Halo,
Star
like I
Wars.
said, Star Wars, and you had Couture, right?
Yeah,
Fucking Jade, Lost, not Lost Odyssey, Jade
Jade
Empire,
Empire. Yeah.
Jade Empire. Like those were like very experimental but Western games, and like they brought those games were kind of locked. Those type of games were locked to the PC, and it brought it to the audience of you know regular people, and we're like, whoa, fucking Western studios are making these type. When I played Jade Empire, I was like, this was made by BioWare. This is like a Western studio that made this shit. This shit's fucking awesome, you know? And it's like, that's what they need to do. They need to show the strength of the Western side of games like they had back in the day. And I think they don't understand that. And I think they're letting Western studios not play to their strength and play a little bit too experimental. We need those like Western style games, but we needed to rival the Eastern because at one point it was rivaling the East. Like it overtook the East in I say the first half of like the PS4 in the late PS3, late PS3 and early PS4 generation. Everything was like Western focused. Like we just got Capcom back, and people don't understand why
Mm-hmm.
Capcom became what it became because they wanted to chase the Western money. So, um, I think that's what they need to do. Um, Xbox, that's what Xbox needs to do. They need to like okay, guys, we understand that you guys want to make experimental games and do something new, but we need y'all to play to y'all strengths, like Ninja Theory, you know, Obsidian, Bethesda, Arcane. Play to your fucking strengths. And then one can argue like Arcane is or Redfall was to their strengths, but where did it go? Okay, where did it go wrong? Why wasn't there any management there? Why did the game come out the way it came out? You know,
Mm-hmm.
like people were weirdly hyped about this game, and I mean, me and you still don't understand
Well,
why.
yeah. Hold on. Yeah, that's. I'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, keep
Okay,
going.
okay, yeah, but that's all I really had to say. Yeah,
Well, yeah. I just hope this is a cautionary tale for people because I remember what was it 2 years ago now when they did the Xbox showcase where they showed Redfall for the first time and it was just a fully cinematic trailer
mm-hmm.
that was really hip looking, cool looking. Admittedly, looked pretty cool, but it was totally cinematic, no gameplay, nothing. Like we didn't get any information of even what the genre was, like what the game was gonna be, like what the structure of the game was. None of that information. And remember, all these motherfuckers out here were losing their minds. Like, oh, Redfall looks so fucking cool, bro. Like, holy shit. Like, I remember we had a whole point about that in the moment back on that podcast when we were talking about
Yeah,
that showcase. Is that people were overhyping this game with no information, and lo and behold, 2 years later, this game fucking comes out and look at it. You know, it's a fucking 4, or 3. It's like probably one of the worst games that's going to come out this year. So, maybe guys, take a step back when you're consuming these game trailers. Be a little bit more discerning about what you're letting yourself get excited about. Like, I'm not saying don't get excited about games, but goddamn, don't fucking eat the marketing hook, line, and sinker like that. This is another unique issue in this fucking industry with video games. Like, I do not feel like this happens with books, movies, television shows. Like when a movie trailer comes out, I don't feel like there's this army of drooling fucking drones, like, oh my god, I can't wait to see this new Doctor Strange movie. It's like I don't feel like that happens as badly as it does in games. Where with games, it's like, dude, the next Zelda's shown, and it's like, oh, it's gonna be the best game ever fucking made. And it's like, dude, they literally just showed the logo Zelda. Like, I don't know how you're making these statements like that. There's this hyperbolic nature of the way we consume and like get excited and hyped about things. Like, calm the fuck down, okay? Like, let a game prove itself to you before you jump over the moon about it. So that, I don't know. It's just my opinion. It's been an issue in this industry for a decade. plus at this point, and I'm just so tired of seeing it. It's just, this is an endless fucking story with this stuff, guys. Like, it's happened over and over and over, where a game gets hyped to the fucking moon and it comes out and it is just not good. It's bad. It's not even close to deserving of any amount of hype whatsoever. So shit, if you listen to anything, calm the fuck down, you know? Like when you see gameplay in a game too, like, fucking examine it, man. Like, actually pay attention to it. Don't just like drool all over yourself and like lose your mind, you know? It's like take a look at the video and like really look at the way a game is actually playing on screen. Because the other thing too is, some of the stuff that we do get, gameplay that we do get, is fucking fake. To Phil's point, they showed the game running at 60 FPS and it was not going to come out at 60 FPS. Like, they literally lied to you, you know, in that marketing of the game, like that. So I don't know, like, don't fall for this shit. Like Watch Dogs, like I brought up earlier in the episode, like, that was fucking, that game looked like fucking incredible, and then it came out and it looked like fucking ass cheeks, like, you know, and everybody was fucking losing their mind about it. But it's like, bro, like, you all just accepted the idea that it was going to be what they said it was, and these companies fucking lie, dude. Like, they're trying to get you to buy a product. If there's anything that any of you can take out of this podcast ever, like the entire run of the show, is that games are products. They're selling you a product. Stop fucking like just accepting whatever shit they hand you. You know, you're paying money for these things. You should accept a certain quality bar. Like, you should not accept what Redfall is. You shouldn't. So, you know, when Starfield comes out and it's, you know, it might not if it turns out it's not as good as everyone thinks it is, I'm going to have the same point to make again. Okay. Like, cause this happened with Fallout 4, Fallout 76, like, you know, it's happened with so many games over the years. And I get so annoyed when we, cause we're going to get another showcase from Xbox in a month. They're going to show shit, you know, and they might show fucking Avowed or Fable or something, you know, and you're going to get all excited. And it's like, have you learned nothing from what Xbox has been doing the past few years with game releases? Like they got to prove it, you know, before you give them that benefit of the doubt, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, get off my soapbox, but
Nah, I agree. I agree with everything you said. Like, I mean, I'm pretty sure we already said that, but I
many
think
times.
Yeah, many times. But I think like Phil Spencer's like attitude towards it, I think was like a wake up call for everybody. I think this game, unfortunately, it didn't happen with fucking Cyberpunk. That should have been a wake up call, but it wasn't. I think this game and the way Xbox is receiving this information is a wake up call for everybody, because I think the time of console wars is over. I think the console war thing is strictly that's strictly like a degenerate thing now at this point. Like, people don't even do it anymore. I remember it used to be a casual thing. Like, people are like, oh man, you got Xbox, I got a PlayStation or whatever. But now everyone has like almost everything. And I've never seen the reception towards Xbox how I've seen today, where people were like, when they should have been shitting on Xbox, they're like, we want you to succeed. Just give us something to have. We want, we want an Xbox in our living rooms. I want an Xbox, bro. I want one. I already have one, but I'm just saying, like, they were saying that. So it was like, I don't know. I think that was like actually really cool. And I hope that they see that, like, they see that people want their products and they just try harder. And maybe they do get that co-CEO, or he hires somebody that's under him and be like, hey, I cannot handle this part. I need you to like manage these teams. Yeah, that's
there's
all
nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that too. If that's what. Like that's not it's not a knock against Phil if he does that. Honestly, it would be to his credit to admit that he needs that. You know.
Man, do you know? Like, just in my example, I had a huge workload, and we got an intern, and he became part-time. At first I was like, I can do all this. I don't really need him, because he'll ask me for help, and I'm like, he'll ask me, do I need help? I'm like, no, I got it. But once I just like let my pride go and like let him do some of the work, oh my god, such a game changer. I've never had so much time on my hands because I can think and focus and like improve quality of stuff that's existing because I'm not worried about other mundane stuff or whatever the case may be. So like he's handling that, and it's like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a constant area of improvement for me. Like I at my job, like I'm a manager, but there's a lot of things I still handle, and it's like I've tried to learn to delegate these things, so I'm
Uh-huh.
not so consumed with it. In the same way, it's like if I'm not doing it, then I can do other things, that are probably more important.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know, but that's I know for our Metacritic score review, we both lost. Well, I guess you won since you're closest to it.
Yeah, no, dude, it was. We were both way off. You were 7.5, I was 7.2. This is a 5.9. I almost feel like this is more I don't want to say Price is Right rules because it is dangerous. Close without going over. We both went over on this,
Yeah,
but yeah, no, this was a bad miss. I I didn't anticipate it would be this rough. I
yeah, I
didn't
didn't
think it would be
either.
that great of a game, but I didn't think it was going to be this big of a flop. So
Yeah, we thought it would be an average game. I mean, we both gave it
yeah,
7.
7
So
is a fair game. It's
yeah,
just there. It's like it's serviceable. Like it does it, but yeah, no, that's not what this is. So yeah, but all right. Montreal, we got Zelda coming out. I think a week from tomorrow, right?
yeah, yeah.
So we're on the cusp of Tears of the Kingdom. We've got Diablo coming in early June. I think it's June 6th. And I have taken I'm actually taking 2 weeks off at the beginning of June. One week to go to Padre, go to the
Okay.
beach, and the second week to fucking poop sock Diablo 4.
Oh my god.
I'm doing it, baby. I've never taken a week off for a video game before, and I'm fucking doing it. I'm doing it. So because I'm gonna be at the beach when the game comes out, and you guys are going to get ahead of me significantly. So I'm gonna need some time to catch up.
Okay, that makes
So
sense.
that's what I'm gonna do. Looking forward to that, and then we got Final Fantasy at the end of June, Final Fantasy 16. So I am behind on games. I think you're a little bit more caught up than me because yeah, Honkai has like thrown everything off for me because I still gotta finish Metroid. I gotta finish Atelier Ryza. I want to play Jedi Survivor. I want to play Zelda as well. So the games are piling up now, but we will get through them. This is a good problem to have. A lot of really quality video games coming out. So um, exciting stuff. All right, Montreal. Anything else you want to talk about before we go today?
Nope, that's it.
All right. Well, you guys know the drill. If you like this episode, please like the episode, review the show, and subscribe to the show on whatever feed you're listening to it on. And please share it with your friends. If you'd like to interact with us on Twitter, you can do so at iTrap for the Hokage. That is the number 4, not the word. I'm at Thunder01, and the show is at the Player's Take. If you'd like to send us a question, you can do so on Twitter, or you can send us an email to theplayerstake01@gmail.com. And that's it for us, guys. I do want to acknowledge, too, we had a lot of new listeners last week. So if any of you are here and listen to this episode, welcome to the podcast. We hope you're enjoying this. And you stick around with us because we have a lot of deep discussions on this show about games and the industry at large, and we enjoy doing this. So thank you for listening. All right, well, Montreal, that's it for us this week. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you next week. Bye.